The girl at the door. The girl who ruined Mara Bennett's marriage came to her door carrying Daniel's medication in a paper pharmacy bag. For a second, Mara did not understand what she was seeing. The porch light had clicked on automatically when the girl stepped close, flattening her face into pale angles and wet shadows. Rain threaded down from the edge of the roof behind her, tapping softly against the concrete walkway. Her dark hair, glossy and styled in the photographs Mara had once found on Daniel's phone, hung damp against her cheeks now. Mascara had smudged under one eye. She held the pharmacy bag against her chest with both hands, as if someone might try to take it from her. Mara's first thought was not fear. It was irritation, clean, sharp, almost useful. "No," she said. The girl blinked. "Mrs. Bennett." "No." Mara started to close the door. The girl put one hand out, not touching Mara, not touching the door, just lifting it into the space between them. "Please, it's Daniel." That was the wrong thing to say. Or maybe it was the only thing that could have kept Mara standing there. Mara Bennett was 41 years old, a physical therapy assistant, a divorced mother, and the kind of woman who had learned to keep a household running even after the household itself had split in two. She lived in a middle-class neighborhood on the edge of Phoenix, in a one-story house she had once shared with Daniel Bennett, her ex-husband, and their daughter, Sophie. At work, Mara helped injured people stand, walk, bend, lift, and trust their bodies again. At home, after the divorce, she had rebuilt her life through routine. Laundry folded by size, bills paid early, school forms signed, groceries bought on Sundays, Daniel's name kept out of the kitchen unless absolutely necessary. The divorce had been final for 5 months. The damage had started before that. Daniel had cheated with the woman now standing on Mara's porch. Lily Chen was 24, young enough that Mara had once hated the number more than the woman herself. She worked at a high-end salon in Scottsdale, though Mara knew that only because Daniel's phone had once lit up with a message while he was in the shower. And after that, Mara had learned more than she wanted to know. Lily was not a stranger. She was not just some woman. She was the face in the hidden photo, the name Daniel had avoided saying, the proof that Mara's marriage had not ended in one terrible night but had been quietly emptied behind her back. And now Lily was here, wet from the rain, holding Daniel's medication. Behind Mara, the house was too quiet. The dryer had stopped sometime in the last 10 minutes, leaving the laundry room full of that heavy, warm smell of cotton towels. A stack of folded clothes sat on the couch in front of the muted TV. On the stair landing, Sophie's bedroom door was shut, though Mara knew her daughter was not asleep. At 14, Sophie had perfected the kind of silence that meant she was listening, texting, or punishing her mother by refusing to come downstairs. Maybe all three. "What do you want?" Mara asked. Lily swallowed. "He's sick." Mara looked at the bag. The logo belonged to a pharmacy near Daniel's apartment, not far from the office building where he used to work. The top of a white prescription leaflet stuck out, creased and damp at one corner. Mara could see part of Daniel's name in black print, Daniel R. Bennett. She hated that her eyes went to it first. Hated that the familiar letters still arranged themselves inside her body before her mind could stop them. "Then call his doctor," Mara said. "I tried." "Call his mother." "He won't answer her." "That sounds like Daniel's problem." Lily flinched. Mara saw it and felt no satisfaction from it. That annoyed her too. "He's not eating," Lily said. "He hasn't answered me since yesterday morning. I went over there tonight, and he wouldn't let me in." "Then why are you here?" "Because I think he'll let you in." Mara almost laughed. The sound rose but did not leave her throat. Daniel had not let her in for a long time. Not into his phone, not into the late nights he said were client dinners, not into the part of himself that had decided their life was too flat, too familiar, too full of homework reminders and Costco receipts, and the slow, unglamorous work of being married. Lily shifted on the porch. Her hands tightened around the pharmacy bag, making it crackle. "He missed Sophie's birthday," Lily said. Mara's face changed before she could stop it. "Not much, just enough." Lily saw. "It wasn't her birthday," Mara said. "It was dinner the week after." "I know. You don't know anything about my daughter." "I know he was supposed to come." The house seemed to draw tighter around Mara. The hallway light hummed faintly above her. Rainwater dripped from Lily's sleeve onto the welcome mat Mara had bought after the divorce because the old one had said the Bennetts in faded blue letters. "How do you know that?" Mara asked. Lily lowered her eyes. "He told me." Mara opened the door wider, but not in an invitation. "So he can talk to you." "He used to." The answer came too quickly, then seemed to embarrass Lily. She looked past Mara, into the house, as if there might be somewhere to set down the shame she had carried there. Mara stepped slightly into the gap, blocking her view. Do not look into my house. I'm sorry. Don't say that. Lily's mouth closed. From upstairs, there was a small creak. Mara did not turn, but she knew the sound. Sophie's door, opening just enough for a teenager to listen while pretending not to. The old stairs complained in a pattern Mara could map by memory. Third step from the top if Sophie leaned too much. Fifth if she tried to creep down. Sophie Bennett was Mara and Daniel's only child, 14 years old, sharp-eyed, angry, and still young enough to believe that if adults loved her properly, they would stop making her guess. Since the divorce, Sophie had lived between two versions of her father. The father who had taken her for burgers after school, helped with algebra, and remembered every lyric to old songs in the car. And the father who had missed calls, missed dinners, and somehow made her mother's face go still whenever his name came up. Sophie did not know the full truth about Lily. Mara had decided that silence was protection. Lately, she had begun to suspect silence was also a wall her daughter kept bruising herself against. Mara lowered her voice. What is actually wrong with him? Lily looked relieved and terrified at once. He didn't tell you? No, he said he did. He says a lot of things. Lily's expression shifted. Not defense exactly, not agreement either. Something smaller and worse, recognition. She held out the pharmacy bag. Mara did not take it. Lily's hand trembled once, then stilled. There's paperwork in there, from the hospital, and prescriptions. He left them at my place last week. I think on purpose, or maybe not, I don't know anymore. Last week, Lily nodded. He was at your place last week. Lily looked down again. He came by after treatment. The word landed in the doorway without explanation. Treatment. Mara heard the refrigerator kick on in the kitchen. The ordinary sound scraped against the moment. Treatment could mean many things. Physical therapy, infusions, radiation, a bad infection, something temporary, something not. She looked at Lily's face and knew it was not something small. What kind of treatment? Lily breathed in, but it caught. She wiped under one eye with the heel of her hand, smearing the mascara worse. Cancer. Mara was aware of several things at once. The towel she had left unfolded on the couch. The wet line at the bottom of Lily's jeans. The cold edge of the door against her fingers. The fact that Sophie was standing on the stairs now, no longer pretending to be in her room. Mara still did not turn. What did you say? Sophie asked. Her voice was small in the hallway. Lily's eyes widened. Mara closed her own for half a second. Not enough to pray. Just enough to keep from saying the first thing that came to her. When she turned, Sophie was halfway down the stairs, one hand on the banister, hoodie sleeves pulled over her knuckles. Her phone was in her other hand, screen lit against her palm. She looked younger than 14 and older than Mara could bear. Go back upstairs, Mara said. Is Dad sick? Mara hated Lily for standing there. Hated Daniel for not standing there. Hated herself for not already knowing what answer to give. I need to talk to her for a minute. Who is she? The question opened the room differently. Lily looked at Mara, then away. The rain grew heavier for a moment, rushing through the gutter before spilling somewhere near the driveway. She's someone who knows your dad, Mara said. Sophie's eyes moved over Lily. The wet hair, the pharmacy bag, the way she stood too close to the door and not close enough to be welcome. From work? No. Mara's answer came too fast. Sophie heard what was inside it. Her face changed. She did not understand everything, but she understood enough to feel excluded. Is Dad okay? I don't know yet. Why don't you know? Because your father has always been good at making other people live outside the door. Mara did not say that. I'm going to find out, she said. Sophie came down one more step. I'm coming. No. Mom, no, you're staying here. You can't just tell me he has cancer and then... I didn't tell you that. The words came out hard, too hard. Sophie's mouth parted. Hurt moved across her face before anger covered it. Lily whispered, I'm sorry. Mara turned on her. Stop saying that. Silence fell. Not empty silence, crowded silence. The kind that made every object in the hallway look too bright and too still. Sophie's backpack slumped by the closet, the mail stacked on the console table, the framed desert print Mara had hung where Daniel's family photo used to be. Sophie looked from Lily to Mara. Does Grandma Diane know? Mara kept her eyes on her daughter. I don't know. How can you not know? Because your father is not my husband anymore. But even that was not clean enough to say. It would sound like punishment. It would sound like Mara wanted distance more than answers. Maybe she did. Maybe she had built whole weeks out of wanting exactly that. I'm going to Daniel's apartment, Mara said. I'll call you when I know what's happening. I want to talk to him. If he answers, you can. He won't answer me. There it was. The thing underneath the birthday dinner, underneath the slammed door. underneath Sophie's sharp little comments all week about how some people didn't even try. Daniel had not answered her either. Mara glanced at Lily. Lily's face did something painful. She already knew. Of course she did. Sophie noticed the glance. She knows more than us. Mara had no good answer. For years, she had believed the worst part of betrayal was the sex, the lying, the humiliation of being replaced by someone who still looked good crying under porch light. But there were smaller aftershocks, meaner ones. Like standing in her own hallway while her daughter realized a stranger had been closer to her father's life than she had. Sophie, Mara said. Sophie pulled her sleeve over her hand and wiped her cheek, angry at the tear more than the sadness. Don't. Mara nodded once. Took it. Go upstairs. Keep your phone on. Don't open the door for anyone. I'll text Mrs. Alvarado next door and let her know I'm stepping out. I'm not a baby. I know. Then stop acting like I can't hear things. Mara looked at Lily again, then at the bag. Give me the paperwork, she said. Lily held it out. This time Mara took it. The paper was warmer than she expected, held against Lily's body for too long. The handle sagged under the weight of bottles and folded documents. Mara looked inside, not pulling anything out fully. White caps, orange vials, a discharge summary folded into quarters, an appointment card, a medication sheet with small print and checkboxes. Her work brain tried to sort it, names, dosages, instructions, dates. Her other brain refused. Sophie came down another step. What does it say? Mara folded the top of the bag closed. I need to look at it in the car. That doesn't make sense. It does to me. Everything makes sense to you when you don't want to talk. The sentence hit its mark because Sophie had not aimed it carefully. She had thrown it in the general direction of her mother's face and still found the bruise. Lily stepped back from the threshold as if she knew she had already brought enough damage inside. Mara grabbed her keys from the console table. Her purse was still on the dining chair where she had dropped it after work. She took it too, then looked down and realized she was still wearing house slippers. Of all things, that nearly undid her. She kicked them off, slid her feet into the sneakers by the door, and felt Sophie watching every movement. Do you have his key? Mara asked Lily. Lily nodded. Well, he keeps one outside. Of course he does. It's not like that. Mara looked at her. Lily's face flushed. I just mean, he told me in case he couldn't get up. That image entered the hallway and stayed there. Sophie went very still. Mara forced her voice flat. Address. I can drive. I didn't ask if you could drive. I asked for the address. Lily gave it. Mara knew the complex. Daniel had chosen it after the divorce because it was close to the freeway and had a small gym he probably never used. He had shown her the website once on his phone while signing settlement papers, as if she might be reassured by granite countertops and covered parking. She had not been reassured. She had been tired. Mara typed the address into her phone, though she did not need to. Sophie came to the bottom of the stairs now. Mom. Mara stopped with her hand on the doorknob. Sophie looked smaller in the light from the hallway. For a brief, irrational second, Mara wanted to send Lily away, call Daniel a cab, turn off every phone in the house, and make hot chocolate the way she used to when Sophie had nightmares. But there were no doors that led backward. What? Mara asked, softer than before. If he's really sick, Sophie said, don't be mean to him. Mara did not move. Lily lowered her head. The request was not cruel, that was what made it unbearable. Sophie was afraid, and because she was afraid, she had reached for the rule that made the most sense to a child. Sick people deserve gentleness. Dying people, maybe more than anyone. Mara wondered when children learned that gentleness could cost something. I'm going to check on him, she said. That's not what I said. I heard what you said. Sophie looked as if she might argue. Then she hugged herself and stepped back. Mara opened the door. Rain-cooled air came into the hallway. Lily hesitated at the threshold. You can follow me, Mara said. I thought maybe I should come with you. No, he might not open the door he might not open the door for either of us. Lily looked towards Sophie, then away quickly, as if ashamed to be seen by her. I didn't want her to find out like this, Lily said. Mara almost asked what Lily had wanted. A better porch, a better night, a cleaner roll. Instead, she said, you don't get to want things about my daughter. Lily accepted that with a small nod. It did not look like agreement. It looked like someone letting a cut happen because they had brought the knife. Mara stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind her. On the porch, under the weak yellow light, Lily seemed even younger. No longer a photograph. No longer a fantasy Mara had built from evidence and imagination. Just a woman in wet jeans with ruined makeup, and Daniel's pharmacy bag no longer in her hands. Mara pressed the lock button on her key fob. Her car chirped in the driveway. Is it bad? Mara asked. Lily looked at her. I don't know. Don't do that. I really don't. You knew enough to come here. Lily hugged her arms around herself. Rain dotted the shoulders of her thin jacket. He told me it was treatable, then he said it was complicated. Then he stopped letting me go with him. Then he stopped answering. Mara studied her. There was a time not long ago when she had imagined Lily as careless. A girl who liked expensive dinners and older men with steady hands and nice watches. A girl who thought a wife was just a boring obstacle in the way of a story that made her feel chosen. Maybe some of that was true, but not all of it. Not tonight. That was inconvenient. Why didn't you call 911? Mara asked. I almost did. Almost. He said if I did, he'd never speak to me again. Mara stared at her. And that stopped you? Lily's mouth tightened. For the first time, something like anger crossed her face. Not at Mara. At herself, maybe. At Daniel. At the whole arrangement that had made her stand in the rain asking permission from a woman she had hurt. It did yesterday, she said, and not tonight. Mara turned toward her car. Lily did not follow right away. Mrs. Bennet. Mara looked back. Lily's lips parted, then closed. She seemed to abandon whatever apology she had prepared. He's scared, she said instead. Mara held her keys so tightly the metal dug into her palm. So is my daughter. Lily nodded. Mara got into the car. For a moment, after the door shut, the world narrowed to the windshield blurred by rain and the soft dashboard light on her hands. She put the pharmacy bag on the passenger seat. It slumped toward her, open at the top. She pulled out the first paper. Discharge instructions. Daniel R. Bennett. Diagnosis lines. Medication instructions. Follow-up oncology appointment. Terms Mara knew from work but did not want to know here. Words that belonged to other families, other rooms, other people, who sat beside beds and nodded while doctors explained what could still be done. A text from Sophie lit up her phone. Is he dying? Mara did not answer. Not because she wanted to punish Sophie. Not because she did not know the importance of reassurance. She spent entire workdays saying, good, shift your weight slowly. I've got you. Breathe before you stand. She knew the value of giving people something solid to lean on. She just did not have anything solid yet. She set the paper back in the bag and started the car. In the rearview mirror, Lily's sedan pulled out behind her. The drive to Daniel's apartment took 11 minutes. Mara knew because the navigation said so, and because she counted nearly every red light. Phoenix at night after rain looked falsely clean, the asphalt black and shining, the desert shrubs along the road darkened to deeper green. Strip mall signs floated in puddles. A fast food place still had cars at the drive-thru. People were buying fries and sodas while Daniel sat somewhere behind a locked door with pills he might or might not have taken. Mara hated the mind for doing that, for widening the world at the wrong time. At a red light, she picked up her phone and called Daniel. It rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then voicemail. Daniel's recorded voice came on, professional and warm in the way he used to sound with clients. You've reached Daniel Bennett. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. Mara ended the call before the beep. The light changed. She tried again 2 minutes later from the apartment parking lot. This time, she left the phone ringing while she got out of the car. Lily pulled in beside her, but stayed behind the wheel for a moment, both hands on the steering wheel, her face pale under the dome light. Mara did not wait for her. The complex was quiet except for the hiss of tires on wet pavement from the street beyond the gate. Daniel's building stood at the far side. Beige stucco and outdoor staircases, identical doors under identical porch lamps. He had chosen the second floor. Of course he had. He had always liked views, even bad ones. Mara climbed the stairs with the phone pressed to her ear. Still ringing. No TV from behind his door. No footsteps. No shower running. No low music, though Daniel used to leave music on when he cooked because he hated a silent room. Lily came up behind her, breathing fast. He keeps the key in the planter, she whispered. Mara looked at the dead succulent beside the door. Her phone kept ringing. She did not reach for the key yet. Instead, she stood in front of Daniel's apartment, listening. Inside, faint and muffled, Daniel's phone rang from somewhere beyond the door. Once. Twice. 3 times. No movement followed. No curse from Daniel. No irritated call of, hold on. No sound of a man crossing a room he still had the strength to cross. Only the phone, ringing and ringing, as if the apartment itself were answering for him. The apartment. Daniel's phone kept ringing behind the door. Mara stood with her own phone pressed to her ear and listened to it from both sides. The clean digital ring against her cheek and the muffled distant version from inside the apartment. The delay between them was small, almost nothing, but enough to make the door feel thicker. Once. Twice. 3 times. Still no movement. Behind her, Lily shifted on the wet concrete landing. He keeps the key in the planter, Lily whispered again. Mara did not look at her. She looked at the dead succulent beside Daniel's door. It sat in a cheap black plastic pot, the soil pale and cracked. The leaves collapsed into themselves as if they had given up weeks ago. Daniel had never been good with plants. In their old house, Mara had always been the one who remembered water, sun, shade, pruning, the small, ordinary things that kept living things from failing quietly in corners. Where? Mara asked. Lily stepped forward, then stopped as if waiting for permission. When Mara did not give it, Lily crouched beside the planter and lifted the pot with both hands. A silver key lay underneath, stuck to the damp concrete by a line of mud. Of course Lily knew where it was. The thought came before Mara could stop it. Not Daniel's mother, not Sophie, not Mara, who had once known which cabinet held his allergy medicine and which side of his jaw clicked when he was exhausted. Lily knew the spare key. Lily wiped it on the sleeve of her jacket and held it out. Mara took it without thanking her. The phone still rang. Mara ended the call. The apartment went silent. The silence was worse. She knocked once, hard. Daniel. Nothing. She knocked again. Daniel, it's Mara. A sound came from inside. Not a voice, not footsteps, something small, a scrape maybe, a plastic bottle tipping over, or a person trying to move and failing. Lily made a little sound behind her. Mara put the key into the lock. Her hand was steady. She noticed that the way she might have noticed a patient compensating with the wrong muscle group. Steady did not mean calm. Steady meant a body had chosen function over truth. The lock turned. The apartment smelled wrong. Not filthy, not exactly. Daniel had never been a messy man in the careless sense. But the air was stale, closed in, carrying the sourness of old takeout, medication, sweat dried into fabric, and something chemical from the bathroom. No lamps were on in the living room. Only a strip of light from the kitchen range cut across the floor. Mara stepped inside. The apartment looked less like a place someone lived than a place someone had paused. A folding chair stood by the sliding glass door, facing the parking lot. A cardboard box of financial papers sat open on the floor. A gray throw blanket had fallen halfway off the couch. On the coffee table were orange prescription bottles, unopened mail, a glass with cloudy water at the bottom, and a white plastic hospital bracelet cut cleanly through and left beside a TV remote. Against one wall was an air mattress with sheets twisted into a rope at the center. Daniel had rented an apartment with stainless appliances, covered parking, and a fitness center, then slept on an air mattress. Mara hated him for that. She hated that the thought was easier than fear. "Daniel," Lily called from the doorway. "Stay there," Mara said. Lily froze with one foot over the threshold. "This isn't your apartment," Lily said very softly. Mara turned. Lily's face went red. I know what you mean." Mara moved toward the hallway. The bathroom light was on. She saw him before she was ready. Daniel Bennett was 44 years old, Mara's ex-husband, Sophie's father, and for most of their marriage, a man who had known how to enter a room as if he had already made peace with it. He had been a financial advisor before the illness hollowed out his life, the kind of man who wore pressed shirts, kept breath mints in his car, and spoke to clients in a voice that made risk sound manageable. The last time Mara had seen him in person, at a custody exchange 3 weeks earlier, he had looked tired but upright, thinner maybe, a little gray around the mouth. She had told herself not to care. Now he was sitting on the bathroom floor with his back against the tub, one knee bent, one arm braced against the tile, as if he had been trying to push himself up and had stopped halfway through the idea. His t-shirt hung off him. The bones at his collar seemed too sharp. His hair, usually neat even when he pretended not to care, was damp at the temples. A plastic trash can sat beside him. There were tissues in it. A washcloth lay crumpled near the sink. For 1 second, Mara did not see the affair, the lawyers, the texts, the bank statements, Lily on the porch. She saw a man on a bathroom floor. Then Daniel opened his eyes, and the old damage came back into the room. "Mara?" His voice was thin, irritated before it was relieved. She crouched in front of him, not close enough to touch. "Can you stand?" His eyes moved past her. Lily stood in the hallway now, one hand pressed against the wall. Daniel's face changed. "What did you do?" he said. Lily flinched as if he had thrown something. Mara looked over her shoulder. "Go wait in the living room." Lily did not move. "Lily," Daniel said, sharper. It cost him. The words scraped out of him and left him breathing through his mouth. "I told you not to call anyone." "She didn't call anyone," Mara said. "She came to my house." Daniel closed his eyes. That small gesture angered Mara more than if he had yelled. As if he were the exhausted one. As if the inconvenience belonged to him. "Can you stand?" she asked again. "I'm fine." Mara looked at the trash can, the sweat on his neck. the way his hand kept slipping against the tile. No, you're not. I got dizzy. How long have you been on the floor? I don't know. Daniel. I said, I don't know. His voice snapped, then thinned immediately. He turned his head slightly toward the tub, swallowing hard. Mara shifted closer before she thought about it. Not as a wife, not as anything tender. As a woman who had spent years helping people move when their bodies had turned unreliable. She touched the back of her fingers to his wrist. His skin was hot and dry, too dry. Daniel tried to pull away. He did not have the strength to make it convincing. Don't, he said. I'm checking your pulse. I didn't ask you to. No, you made sure nobody could. He looked at her then. For a moment, something like shame crossed his face. It was gone quickly, replaced by stubbornness, which had always fit him better. Lily made a small sound from the hallway. He hasn't kept water down. Daniel turned his head. Stop. She needs to know. She doesn't need anything. Mara looked at him. That's not up to you tonight. He gave a humorless little breath, almost a laugh, but it broke into a cough. He leaned toward the trash can. Mara reached to steady his shoulder, stopped herself, then did it anyway because his body had already chosen for both of them. His shoulder was too narrow under her hand. She felt Lily watching. Mara hated that too. When the cough passed, Daniel wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, like a man still trying to be alone. Mara stood. Where are your meds? I know what I'm taking. That wasn't what I asked. I said I'm fine. You're on the bathroom floor. I slipped. You don't have a bath mat. Daniel looked down as if the absence of a bath mat might personally betray him. Mara left him there and went to the sink. 2 prescription bottles sat beside the faucet. 1 anti-nausea, 1 pain medication. Neither had today's cap mark turned. She opened the medicine cabinet. Toothpaste, a razor, mouthwash, a box of gauze. No system, no pill organizer, nothing that suggested a person trying to track dosages with any seriousness. On the floor near the door was a discharge packet, pages spread and curled from moisture. Mara picked it up. Don't, Daniel said. She ignored him. The top page listed instructions. Hydration. Follow up with oncology. Call if vomiting continued, fever, confusion, uncontrolled pain, weakness, inability to stand. Inability to stand. She looked back at him. He had turned his face away. Lily spoke from the hall. He said the papers were old. Go sit down, Daniel said. I'm not leaving. I didn't ask you to leave, I told you to sit down. That was Daniel. Even half collapsed on tile, he still corrected phrasing. Lily's face tightened. For a second, Mara saw the relationship between them without wanting to. Lily wanting to be useful, Daniel wanting to be unseen. Both of them trapped in a scene they had not imagined when the affair had still felt like escape. Mara folded the papers under her arm. Have you urinated today? Daniel stared at her. She stared back. The question was ugly and practical. It cut through everything better than anger. Jesus, Mara, that's not an answer. I'm not doing this. You are. I'm not your patient. No, she said. Patients usually tell me when they can't stand up. His mouth tightened. Have you kept any fluids down since this morning? I had some. How much? A little. Daniel. I don't know, half a glass. When? He did not answer. Mara looked at Lily. Lily shook her head. Daniel saw the look. Don't bring her into this. She brought herself into this when you left your prescriptions at her place and stopped answering your phone. I didn't leave them. They were in my car, Lily said quietly. Daniel closed his eyes again. Mara looked from one to the other. What does that mean? Lily did not answer at first. Daniel said nothing. Lily. Lily's voice came out thin. He asked me to drive him home from treatment last week. He said he didn't want to leave his car there overnight. When we got here, he took the grocery bag, but not the pharmacy one. I called him about it. He said he'd pick it up later. Mara looked at Daniel. You left your medication with her for a week? It wasn't all of it. Was it the anti-nausea? He looked away. That was answer enough. Mara set the papers on the sink and walked back to the living room. The apartment revealed itself in pieces she did not want to collect. On the coffee table under the mail was an envelope from an insurance company. Beside it, a past due notice from the apartment complex. Another envelope from a law office. A printout about beneficiary changes. A hospice brochure tucked under a car magazine, as if hiding something under a thinner lie made it less true. Mara picked up the brochure. Lily saw it from the hallway and went still. I didn't know about that, she said. Mara believed her. That was inconvenient too. From the bathroom, Daniel said, put that down. Mara did not. The brochure showed a smiling older couple on a porch. Not Daniel's age. Not this apartment. Not anything like the bathroom floor or the folding chair by the window. Under the photo, the words were gentle enough to be cruel. Comfort, choice, dignity. Mara set it back exactly where she had found it. Her phone buzzed. Sophie, did you find him? Then another. Mom, answer me. Mara looked at the messages until the screen dimmed. She did not know how to answer without building another room full of lies. She put the phone in her back pocket. Lily had stepped closer to the bathroom again. Daniel was trying to push himself upright, one hand on the tub, one on the sink cabinet. The effort made his face go gray. Stop, Mara said. I can get up. No, you can't. I don't need an audience. Mara looked at Lily. Go to the kitchen. Fill a glass with water. Not cold. If there's Pedialyte or Gatorade, bring that too. Lily nodded and moved quickly, grateful for an instruction. Cabinets opened and closed in the kitchen. Daniel glared at Mara. Don't order her around. She wanted to help. You don't get to use her. That landed strangely. Mara almost laughed, but the sound would have been too sharp for the room. I'm using her? Daniel looked away. In the kitchen, Lily went very quiet. Mara lowered herself into a crouch again, this time close enough that Daniel had to look at her, unless he turned his entire head. I'm going to help you to the couch. Then I'm calling the after-hours oncology line. If they say ER, we go to the ER. No, that wasn't the negotiation. I'm not going to the ER. You may not get to decide that. I absolutely get to decide that. The words came back stronger, the old Daniel in them. The one who sat across from her in mediation and said he wanted to keep things civil, as though civility were something he had not already spent. Mara kept her voice low. You are dehydrated. You may have missed medication. You may have complications from treatment. You're on the bathroom floor, so yes, you get to make decisions. But you don't get to make everyone pretend they aren't decisions. His gaze sharpened. That sounds like something you practiced. No, I'm tired. Lily returned with a glass of water and a sports drink she must have found somewhere in the fridge. She stood there, holding both, unsure which woman to give them to. Mara took the water. Thank you. Lily looked surprised. Daniel looked insulted. Mara ignored both reactions. She handed the glass to Daniel, small sip. He looked at it like she had offered him a defeat. Daniel. He took the glass. His hand shook slightly. He noticed. Mara knew he noticed because his mouth hardened around the sip. He swallowed once and held the glass away. Again, she said, I'm not a child. I didn't say you were. You're talking to me like one. You're acting like one. Lily looked down at the floor. Daniel's eyes flashed. For a second, Mara saw him as he had been in their kitchen years ago. Angry, but controlled, saying she was making something bigger than it needed to be. The memory came and went fast, like light from a passing car. He drank again. Then he leaned back against the tub, exhausted by 2 sips of water. Mara turned to Lily. How many times has he been like this? Daniel said, don't answer that. Lily hesitated. Mara waited. Lily said, this bad? I don't know. He wouldn't let me in tonight. Last week he threw up in the parking lot after treatment. He said it was normal. It can be, Mara said. It can also not be. Lily nodded quickly as if grateful for any sentence that did not blame her. Daniel's voice was rough. You're enjoying this. Mara looked at him. The sentence was so unfair, so small and human and ugly, that for a moment it almost steadied her. This was not a dying saint. This was Daniel. Sick, yes. Frightened, probably. Still capable of making his shame someone else's fault. No, she said, I'm not. He did not apologize. She had not expected him to. Mara stood and went back to the living room. She needed space before her face betrayed too much. She opened the nearest box of papers. Tax documents. Old client files he should not have kept there. Bank statements. A folder labeled Sophie and Daniel's neat block handwriting. She touched it, then stopped. No, not now. Beside the folder was a large white envelope with Mara's name on it. Not mailed, just written. Mara. She stared at it. Lily came up behind her and saw it too. I didn't know about that. Mara picked it up. It was unsealed. Inside were copies of financial documents. Beneficiary changes. A life insurance policy. A note folded once. She did not open the note. Not because she was afraid of what it said, because Daniel was still alive in the bathroom, and she refused to read something that had the cowardly shape of after. Daniel's voice came from the hall. Mara. He knew what she had found. She turned. He had managed to shift onto one knee and was gripping the sink cabinet. His face was pale with effort. Put it back, he said. What is this? Put it back. Were you planning to mail this? Leave it on my porch? What? It's paperwork. It has my name on it. I was trying to make things easier. The words were not dramatic. They were tired. That made them worse. Mara held the envelope at her side. For who? Daniel did not answer. Lily looked between them. She seemed to realize she had reached the edge of a private room she had no right to enter, but she did not leave. Maybe she could not. Maybe the same sick curiosity held her there that held Mara. Daniel said, "I didn't want Sophie dealing with bills. Sophie is 14. I know how old she is. Do you?" His face closed. Mara hurt herself and hated the satisfaction that tried to rise in her. She did not want to win against a man on a bathroom floor. She did not want to lose either. Her phone buzzed again. Sophie calling this time. The sound filled the room. Daniel looked toward her pocket. Lily looked at Mara. Mara did not answer. The call stopped. A text followed. "Please." Mara's throat worked once. She put the envelope on the coffee table, not back in the box, not in her bag. Visible, unsettled. "I need to tell her something," she said. Daniel shook his head. "Don't scare her. She's already scared. I'll call her tomorrow." "You didn't call her on her birthday dinner?" His jaw tightened. "I was sick." "Then say that." "I didn't want her to know." "She knew you weren't there." Daniel flinched. That reached him. Not enough, but some. Mara took her phone out and answered Sophie's last text instead of calling. "I found him. He's awake. I'm handling it. Stay inside. I'll call soon." The reply came almost instantly. "Is he coming home?" Mara stared at the screen. No, she wanted to type. Of course not. That was the whole point of divorce. Separate houses, separate keys, separate emergencies if the universe had any decency left. Daniel had chosen a life outside their home. He had chosen secrecy, then apology, then mediation, then this apartment with its second-floor view of a parking lot. Mara had spent months teaching herself not to care whether he had groceries, whether he slept, whether he was lonely. Now his daughter was asking if he was coming home. Mara locked the phone without answering. Daniel saw. "No," he said. "You don't know what she asked." "I know." "You don't." "I'm not going back there." Mara looked at him. "You think this is better? I'm not doing this in front of Sophie. You're already doing it in front of Sophie. Just from far enough away that she has to imagine the worst parts." He leaned his head back against the bathroom wall, his eyes closed. For the first time, he looked less stubborn than spent. "I can stay," Lily said. Both Mara and Daniel looked at her. Lily's face flushed, but she did not take it back. I don't have to work tomorrow until noon. I can sleep on the couch." "No," Daniel said. Daniel, "No. You can't even get up." "I said no." Lily's mouth trembled, then steadied. "You don't get to just push everyone out." Daniel's eyes opened. "You shouldn't have come here." "I know." "You shouldn't have gone to her." "I know." "Then why did you?" Lily looked toward Mara, then back at him. Her voice was small, but not weak. "Because I found you like this last week too, and you made me leave, and then you stopped answering, and I kept thinking, what if he dies and I'm the only person who knows he was alone?" The room changed after she said it. Not because the sentence was beautiful, it wasn't. It was plain, messy, too much about herself, and exactly honest enough to hurt. Daniel looked at the floor. Mara felt an unexpected, unwelcome shift in her anger. Lily had not come because she was noble. She had come because she was scared of being the only witness. There was selfishness in it. There was love too, or something close enough to make no practical difference tonight. Mara went to the hallway closet and found a clean hand towel. She wet it at the kitchen sink, wrung it out, and brought it to Daniel. He did not reach for it, so she put it on the edge of the tub. "I'm calling the nurse line," she said. "No ambulance." I said, "Nurse line?" "No ER. If they say ER, we'll discuss it." "No." Mara crouched again. This time, she let the anger show. "Listen to me. You are not going to sit on this floor and manage everybody else's feelings like this is a calendar invite you can decline." Daniel stared at her. The line was too polished. She knew it the second she said it. Too much shape. Too much anger trying to become order. She looked away first, annoyed at herself. Then she said more plainly, "You look awful. You need help. That's what's happening." Daniel's face moved slightly. A small, broken, almost smile gone before it formed. "I do look awful," he said. Lily gave a short laugh that turned into a breath. Mara did not laugh. She called the after-hours oncology number printed on the discharge sheet. While she waited through the automated menu, she watched Daniel try not to shiver. Lily stood by the kitchen counter, arms folded tight, eyes fixed on him, and then away whenever he noticed. A nurse answered. Mara gave Daniel's name and date of birth because Daniel, after a small hesitation, supplied it. She listed symptoms: vomiting, weakness, possible dehydration, floor transfer, missed medication, poor oral intake. The nurse asked if Mara was his wife. Mara paused. Daniel opened his eyes. Lily looked at the floor. "Ex-wife," Mara said. The word landed hard enough for all three of them to hear. The nurse asked if Daniel was able to consent to Mara discussing his care. Mara held the phone out. Daniel stared at it. For a second, she thought he would refuse just to preserve the shape of his privacy. Just to keep one last door closed. Then he took the phone. "Yes," he said, his voice was rough. "She can talk." He handed it back without looking at her. The nurse recommended ER if he could not keep fluids down or stand safely. At minimum, urgent evaluation, first thing in the morning. If symptoms worsened, call 911. Mara wrote it down on the back of an unopened electric bill because it was the nearest paper. Daniel watched her. When the call ended, he said, "I'm not going to the ER tonight. You may not need to if we can get fluids in you, and you can stand with help." "I can stand. Not by yourself." His mouth tightened again. Mara looked around the apartment. Air mattress, folding chair, old water. Meds scattered across rooms. Bathroom floor. No food that did not come in plastic. No one who could legally or practically watch him except the woman he had betrayed and the woman he was refusing to let in. She felt suddenly tired in a way that had weight. Not sleepy, loaded. "You can't stay here alone," she said. "I'm not going to the hospital." "I didn't say hospital." Daniel looked at her. Lily looked at her too. Mara heard what she had not yet said. No. She could still choose no. She could call Diane. She could call an ambulance over his objection if he worsened. She could tell Lily to stay and let the disaster arrange itself around someone else for once. She could go home to Sophie and say, "Your father's sick, but adults are handling it," which would be both true and false in the way many parental sentences were. Daniel's phone lay on the bathroom floor where it must have fallen earlier. Its black screen reflected the ceiling light. Sophie's unanswered calls were probably there too. Mara saw her daughter at the bottom of the stairs, hoodie sleeves over her hands, saying, "Don't be mean to him." She saw Lily holding out the pharmacy bag. She saw the envelope with her own name on it. She saw Daniel on the floor, still trying to look like a man who had made a plan. "You're coming home tonight," Mara said. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Daniel looked at her as if she had struck him. "No," he said. "Yes?" "Mara, don't. You don't want me there? That is not the problem we're solving." His eyes searched her face. For forgiveness, maybe. For cruelty. For the woman he had known well enough to hurt and not well enough to predict anymore. "I can manage," he said. "You can't get off the bathroom floor. I don't want Sophie seeing me like this. She's already seeing the empty chair where you were supposed to be." He looked away. That one landed too. Lily made a soft sound, almost a sob, then covered it with her hand. Daniel heard and turned on her with the little strength he had left. "Don't." Lily dropped her hand. "Don't what?" "Don't make this worse." Her face went still. Mara watched something close inside Lily. Not completely, just enough. There it was, the shift. Lily had brought Mara there because Daniel would not let her help. Now, in front of Mara, Daniel had made it clear again. Lily could love him, fear for him, carry his medication through the rain. But she did not get to be the person who decided where he went. Maybe that should have pleased Mara. It did not. Mara stood and picked up the discharge papers, the medications from the bathroom, the bag from Lily's car, and the envelope with her name on it. She put them all into one reusable grocery bag she found hanging from a kitchen chair. It was from a store Mara used to shop at with Daniel on Saturday mornings. The apartment kept doing that, offering little insults without meaning to. "We're packing what you need for tonight," she said. "I'm not a suitcase. No, you're a grown man who apparently needs 3 women to keep him from passing out next to a toilet." Daniel blinked. Lily looked down quickly. Mara did not apologize. She went into what must have been the bedroom. It barely qualified. A mattress on the floor. 2 laundry baskets, one clean, one not. A row of dress shirts still in dry cleaning plastic hanging in the open closet. Relics from the version of Daniel who had cared what people saw first. She found sweatpants, socks, a hoodie, a phone charger, toiletries. She avoided drawers she did not need to open. She did not want to find Lily there too, in a hair tie, a receipt, a second toothbrush. When she came back, Daniel had managed, with Lily's help despite his obvious irritation, to shift from the bathroom floor to sitting against the hallway wall. Lily was kneeling beside him, crying silently now, which made her look even younger and also less like a girl than Mara wanted her to. Daniel was looking at nothing. Mara set the clothes on the couch. "Can you stand if I help?" "I don't want her helping me." Lily went rigid. Mara said, "You don't get to be picky." I said, I heard you." She knelt in front of him. "We're going to do this once. You're going to put one hand on the wall, one hand on my forearm. Lily's going to bring the chair closer. You're going to stand, pivot, sit. If you get dizzy, you say dizzy, not fine, dizzy." Daniel gave her a long look. For a moment, they were not divorced, not married either. They were something older and stranger. Two people who had once known how the other moved through a room. Then he nodded. Lily dragged the folding chair closer. Mara braced herself, offering her arm. Daniel took it. His grip was weaker than she expected. That was the worst part. Not the apartment, not Lily knowing the key, not the paperwork or the brochure, or the envelope with her name. His hand on her arm, too light. They got him up. Halfway through, his knees softened. Mara shifted her weight and caught him before he slid, and Lily reached for his other side without waiting to be asked. Daniel made a sound of anger more than pain. Dizzy? Mara asked. He breathed through his nose. Daniel. Yes. Plain, humiliating, necessary. They got him into the chair. The room seemed to settle around that one small defeat. Mara took her phone out and finally answered Sophie's question. He's coming with me tonight. He's sick but awake. I'll explain what I can when I get home. She stared at the message before sending it. Then she pressed send. A reply came seconds later. Home? Mara did not answer right away. Daniel watched her from the chair, pale and angry and ashamed. Lily stood beside the kitchen counter, no longer moving, no longer asking, as if she already understood that the door she had opened would close without her. Mara picked up Daniel's bag. Yes, she said aloud, though she was not sure whether she was answering Sophie, Daniel, Lily, or the part of herself still standing on the porch, refusing to let this night begin. Then she looked at Daniel. You're coming home tonight. Daniel's face tightened. For the first time all night, he did not argue. He just looked at her as if the word home hurt more than the floor, more than the sickness, more than anything the doctors had already said. Guest room rules. By the time Mara got Daniel through her front door, it was after midnight, and the rain had thinned into a wet shine over the driveway. He paused at the threshold, not because he had changed his mind. He had already tried that twice in the car, once when Mara pulled out of the apartment complex and once at a red light on Camelback. His voice low from the passenger seat, saying he could stay with his mother, saying he could call someone tomorrow, saying in 3 different ways that he did not want to go back into the house that used to be his. Mara had not answered most of it. She had driven with both hands on the wheel, Daniel's bag on the back seat, the pharmacy bag at his feet, and Lily's headlights following 2 cars behind until Mara turned onto her street and Lily kept driving. Now Daniel stood in the doorway of the house he had left 5 months ago. One hand braced against the frame, breathing as if the short walk from the car had been an argument he was losing. Mara held his elbow. She had told herself she would not. In the parking lot at his apartment, she had thought about calling an ambulance after all. He had gone gray twice on the stairs. He had refused with the quiet, infuriating firmness of a man who still believed refusal was a form of strength. The after-hours nurse had said, if he worsens, go in. If he cannot keep fluids down, go in. If he becomes confused, go in. Daniel had heard all of it and still said no ER. So Mara had brought him here. Not to forgive him, not to restore anything. Not because the house had been waiting for him. Because Sophie was upstairs, awake, and Daniel could not be left alone on a bathroom floor. That was the shape of the truth Mara could bear for now. The hallway lamp had been left on. Sophie must have turned it on after Mara left. The light made the house look too awake. The backpack by the closet, the laundry still folded on the couch, the framed desert print on the wall where Daniel's family photo used to hang. The place had been arranged around absence for months. Now absence had returned with a duffel bag and a hospital bracelet mark, still pale against one wrist. Careful, Mara said as Daniel stepped over the threshold. I've got it. You don't. He gave her a look. Old reflex. A husband's annoyance, a patient's pride, a man's shame dressed up as irritation. Then his knee softened. Mara tightened her grip and shifted her weight before he fell. Her body knew what to do faster than her anger did. His hand caught the narrow entry table, making the mail slide sideways. Dad? Sophie stood halfway down the hall, barefoot, hair loose around her face, wearing the oversized gray hoodie she used when she wanted to disappear inside herself. Sophie Bennett was 14 years old, Mara and Daniel's only child, and since the divorce, she had become an expert at reading doors. Closed bedroom doors, car doors at custody exchange, the front door when Daniel was late. Tonight she stood in the hallway, not as a child who had been protected, but as someone who had been kept waiting too long with only half a truth. Her eyes went first to Daniel's face, then to Mara's hand on his elbow, then to the bag in Mara's other hand. Daniel tried to straighten. The attempt hurt to watch. Hey, Soph, he said. His voice aimed for normal and missed. Sophie came toward him, then stopped as if she did not trust the room to stay solid. What happened to you? Nothing, I'm just... Don't, Mara said. Daniel looked at her. Mara did not look away. Sophie's face tightened. Don't what? Mara set the pharmacy bag on the console table. Your dad is sick. He's going to stay here tonight. Tonight? For now. Daniel said, just a couple days. Mara turned slightly toward him. We don't know that. Sophie looked between them. The fear in her face sharpened into anger because anger gave her somewhere to put her hands. You said you were handling it. I am. This doesn't look handled. Daniel tried to smile. You should see the other guy. Nobody laughed. The little joke fell on the tile between them and stayed there. Sophie took another step. Is it cancer? Mara had known the question was coming. She had still not prepared for it. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. Yes, Mara said. Sophie swallowed. What kind? Sophie, Daniel said. Daniel said. What kind? Mara looked at Daniel. He did not help her. Or maybe he could not. I don't have all the details yet, Mara said. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have tonight. Sophie's eyes filled but did not spill. She had inherited that from Mara, unfortunately. The ability to hold back just long enough to make the room worse. Daniel reached one hand toward her. Sophie crossed the distance at once. She did not hug him carefully. She hit him with the force of months of anger turning into fear. Daniel made a sound under his breath, not quite pain, but close. Mara stepped forward automatically. Daniel lifted his eyes over Sophie's shoulder. For a second, Mara saw panic there, not about the pain, about being seen needing help, about his daughter feeling his ribs through his shirt, about the body he had hidden being discovered by the person he had most wanted to protect from it. It's okay, he said into Sophie's hair. Sophie gripped him harder. Why didn't you tell me? Daniel's hand hovered over her back, then settled. I was going to. When? He did not answer. Mara picked up the pharmacy bag before it fell from the console table. She needed something in her hands. Sophie pulled back enough to look at him. Were you at the hospital? Just for a little bit. Mara said he was discharged with instructions he wasn't following. Daniel's mouth tightened. Mara. Sophie looked at her mother. What does that mean? It means he needs fluids, rest, medication on schedule, and someone making sure he can stand without falling. I can stand. Daniel said. Sophie turned on him. You almost fell in the doorway. He looked away. That silenced him better than anything Mara could have said. The house had its own humiliating memory. Daniel had carried Sophie through that same doorway when she was 6 and had fallen asleep in the car after the state fair. He had walked through it with grocery bags in both hands, with Christmas lights tangled around his shoulder, with Mara's birthday flowers held behind his back. He had also walked out of it with 2 suitcases and a face so controlled Mara had wanted to break something just to make him show one honest expression. Now he stood there while his daughter assessed whether he could make it down the hallway. I made up the guest room, Sophie said suddenly. Mara looked at her. You what? I cleared the boxes. Not all of them. Just enough. Sophie wiped her face quickly with her sleeve. I didn't know if he'd need it. Mara had not told her to do that. She had not told her Daniel was coming home. Sophie had taken the uncertainty and turned it into a bed. Of course she had. Children learn from the adults who failed them. Thank you, Daniel said. His voice had changed, softer, rougher. Sophie nodded as if she could not trust herself to speak. Mara moved first. Let's get him sitting down. I can help, Sophie said. No, Mom, not yet. Sophie stiffened. He's my dad. And you're 14. That doesn't mean I'm useless. I didn't say useless. You don't have to. You just do that thing. What thing? The thing where everything is a rule. Daniel shifted beside them. Hey, it's okay. Sophie's eyes stayed on Mara. It's not okay? No, Mara thought. It was not. But there was Daniel's weight under her hand, the medication schedule in the bag, the unanswered questions, Lily's wet face on the porch, Sophie's fear turning toward the easiest target. Mara could not fix all of it in the hallway. Get him a glass of water, Mara said. Sophie looked ready to refuse. Then Daniel said, please. One word from him, and she went. Mara watched her daughter disappear into the kitchen. That hurt too. Daniel saw it. Of course he saw it. He had always been good at catching small damage after causing the larger kind. Mara, he said quietly, save your breath. I didn't ask for this. I know, you made sure no one could ask you anything. His jaw shifted. She guided him down the hallway before he could answer. The guest room had once been an office, then a half-storage room after Daniel left. Sophie had cleared a narrow path from the door to the bed. Cardboard boxes sat stacked against the wall, labeled in Mara's handwriting. Tax records, winter blankets, Daniel Misk. That last one faced the room like an accusation. A clean sheet had been pulled over the mattress. The corners were sloppy, but carefully meant. A spare pillowcase, still creased from the linen closet, covered the pillow. On the nightstand, Sophie had placed a bottle of water, a coaster, and a small lamp shaped like a white ceramic cactus that Mara had bought on clearance and never used. Daniel stopped in the doorway. Mara felt it before she looked at him. The room was not cruel. That was what made it cruel. "You can sit," she said. He lowered himself onto the edge of the bed with more care than either of them acknowledged. His hands stayed flat on the mattress for balance. Mara set the pharmacy bag and his duffel on the floor. Sophie returned with water, moving too fast. A little sloshed over the rim onto her hand. She looked at the spill as if she might cry over that instead of everything else. Daniel took the glass. "Thanks, kiddo." Sophie sat beside him immediately. Mara remained standing. For a moment, the room arranged itself into a picture that did not belong to reality. Father and daughter on a bed, mother at the door, night outside, water glass in hand, a family. Or something close enough that an outsider could mistake it. Mara would not mistake it. "Sophie," she said, "your dad needs to sleep. I'm not leaving. He needs rest. I can sit quietly." Daniel looked down at the water. "Maybe just a minute." Mara almost said no. Then she saw Sophie's hand, hovering near Daniel's sleeve, not quite touching him again. Afraid she might hurt him. Afraid he might vanish if she did not. "1 minute," Mara said. Sophie looked at her with open resentment. Mara stepped into the hall. She did not go far. She stood where she could see the edge of Daniel's knee and the top of Sophie's bent head. She heard the small sounds of the room. Daniel sipping water, Sophie sniffing once, the bed frame settling under his weight. Her phone vibrated in her hand. A text from Lily. "Did he get inside?" Mara stared at it. Then another bubble appeared. "Is he okay?" Mara typed nothing. She turned the phone face down on the hallway shelf and went back into the room. "Sophie." Bed. "It's barely been a minute." "It's been enough." Daniel touched Sophie's shoulder. "Go on. I'm not going anywhere tonight." The promise came too easily. Mara looked at him. Daniel felt it and added, "I mean it." Sophie stood reluctantly. "Can I come in if I wake up?" Daniel opened his mouth. Mara answered first. "You come get me." Sophie turned. "Why?" "Because he needs rest and because I need to know if anything changes." "Everything has already changed." The sentence was not polished. It was not dramatic. It was just a tired, scared 14-year-old stating the obvious. Mara had no reply that would not make her sound like the person Sophie already thought she was. Daniel said, "Your mom's right." Sophie did not look at him. She looked at Mara. Then she walked out. Her bedroom door closed harder than necessary. Mara waited until the sound settled. Then she turned back to Daniel. "Rules, shh," she said. He exhaled. "Of course." "Yes, of course." He leaned back against the pillow, his face gray with fatigue. "Can this wait?" "No. Mara, if you're in this house, it doesn't wait." He closed his eyes. She lowered her voice, not to be kind, but to keep Sophie from hearing. "Guest room only?" His eyes opened. He understood that one immediately. "This is not you moving back in," Mara said. "I know that." "Do you?" "Yes. No promises to Sophie. No telling her things are fine. No telling her you'll explain later if later means never." His mouth tightened. "No Lily in this house." At that, he looked away. Mara watched him. "Daniel, I heard you." "No, I need you to say it." He looked back, annoyed now. "Better." Annoyed meant he had enough strength left to be difficult. "No Lily in the house," he said. "And no hidden medical papers." His expression changed just slightly. There it was. "You don't go through my things," he said. "If your things affect Sophie, they affect me. My medical information is mine." "Yes, it is." He seemed surprised she said it. Mara stepped closer to the bed. "But if you stay here and something happens in this house, I'm the one calling the ambulance. I'm the one answering Sophie's questions. I'm the one dealing with whatever you didn't feel like telling us. So if it affects whether you can stand, eat, take medication, drive, or scare the hell out of our daughter in the middle of the night, I need to know." He stared at the blanket. "It's not that simple," he said. "It never is with you." The words came out before she cleaned them up. Daniel flinched, but only a little. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The lamp cast a low circle of light over the bed, making the rest of the room look unfinished. Boxes. Folded blankets. A framed print leaning against the wall, not yet hung. The room had been used for things Mara did not know where else to put. Now Daniel was one of them. He said, "I didn't want Sophie seeing me like this." "She saw you anyway." "I know." "Do you?" His eyes lifted to hers. This time he did not answer quickly. "I know," he said again, but quieter. She wanted that to be enough for tonight. It was not. It was only a sentence. "Medication schedule starts now," Mara said. "Small sips every 10 minutes. If you throw up again or get dizzy standing, we go in. I'm not going to the ER. If it gets bad enough, I'm not asking. You can't force me. No, but I can call 911 and let you refuse in front of Sophie. That was cruel. She knew it. Daniel knew it too. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he gave a faint nod. Not agreement, temporary surrender. Mara took it. I'm calling Diane in the morning, she said. His face sharpened. No. Yes. Mara, please. The please was worse than the no. She looked toward the hall. Sophie's door remained shut. Your mother's going to find out. Better from one of us than from Sophie texting her at 2 in the morning. She'll make it a whole thing. She's your mother. That's what I mean. For the first time that night, Mara almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. Diane Bennett could turn a minor cold into a casserole schedule and a chain of concerned phone calls before lunch. The almost smile faded before it became anything Daniel could use. You should have told her, Mara said. I should have done a lot of things. She looked at him. He looked back, then away first. There were too many doors inside that sentence. Mara did not open any of them. Sleep, she said. He leaned back, spent. Mara gathered the medication bottles and set them on the nightstand in a line. Anti-nausea, pain medication, antibiotic, something for appetite. Something else she would look up later because she did not trust the quick glance. She found a notepad in the hall drawer and wrote the times down in block letters. Daniel watched her. You don't have to do all that. I know. Then don't. She placed the notepad under the lamp. That's not how tonight is working. He closed his eyes. Mara stepped into the hallway and pulled the door halfway shut. Not closed, not open. A compromise she already disliked. Her phone still lay face down on the shelf. When she picked it up, there were 3 missed texts. 2 from Lily. Please just tell me if he made it. I won't come there. 1 from Sophie, sent from behind the closed bedroom door. Can I sleep on the couch near his room? Mara looked at Sophie's door, then at Daniel's, then at the phone. She answered Sophie first. No, you need sleep. You can see him in the morning. The reply came quickly. You always decide. Mara stood in the hallway until the screen dimmed. The house had gone quiet again, but not the old quiet. Not the post-divorce quiet she had worked so hard to build. This was a listening quiet, a sick room quiet. Every door seemed aware of every other door. Mara did not answer Lily. She put the phone in her pocket and went to the laundry room. The towels were still in the dryer, warm but wrinkling. She pulled them out and stood with them in her arms, unable for several seconds to remember where they belonged. 18 in the morning, Diane Bennett knocked on the door. Mara had slept for 43 minutes on the living room couch, according to the microwave clock she saw when she opened her eyes. Daniel had kept down water and 1 dose of medication. Sophie had come out at 3:07 and stood in the hallway until Mara told her, gently the first time, less gently the second, to go back to bed. Now the sky outside was still a dull gray blue, the rain gone, the desert washed clean and waiting for heat. Diane stood on the porch with a cardigan folded over one arm and a canvas tote bag hanging from her shoulder. Diane Bennett was 68, Daniel's mother, and Mara's former mother-in-law, though the word former had never sat comfortably on her. She was a middle-class woman from Mesa who wore small pearl earrings even to early morning emergencies and spoke in a voice that could make judgment sound like concern if you were too tired to catch it. She had always been kind to Mara in the polished way of women who believed kindness and pressure could occupy the same sentence. This morning, she did not look polished. Her lipstick was uneven. Her hair had been brushed, but not styled. She stepped into Mara's doorway, not as a guest, and not exactly as family, but as a mother who had just learned her son had been sick outside her reach. Mara, she said. Diane. The 2 women stood there for a moment, with all the years between them, holidays, baby pictures, the divorce, the things Diane had not asked directly and Mara had not volunteered. Then Diane reached out and touched Mara's arm. Thank you, she said. Mara wished she had said almost anything else. He's in the guest room. Diane nodded too quickly. Can I see him? He's sleeping. I'll be quiet. Mara stepped aside. Diane entered the house and immediately lowered her voice, though nobody had asked her to. She carried the smell of cold air, hand lotion, and coffee. The tote bag bumped softly against her hip. I brought some things, Diane said. Crackers, ginger tea, that electrolyte powder he used after that stomach bug years ago. I didn't know what he could tolerate. You didn't have to. I know. Diane said it the way people did when they absolutely believed they had to. Sophie's bedroom door opened. She came out wearing pajama pants and the same hoodie from the night before. Her eyes were swollen. When she saw Diane, she moved fast. Grandma, Diane set the tote bag down and opened her arms. Sophie went into them. Mara watched from beside the door. It was not jealousy exactly. It was worse. It was the knowledge that Diane's grief had somewhere simple to go. Her son was sick. Her granddaughter was scared. She could hold someone and be held without explaining who had hurt whom first. Diane stroked Sophie's hair. "Oh, honey." "Did you know?" Sophie asked into her shoulder. Diane's face tightened. She looked at Mara over Sophie's head. "No," Diane said, "not enough." "Not enough." Mara heard the carefulness in it. Sophie pulled back. "What does that mean?" "It means your dad didn't want to worry people." Mara looked away. There it was, the first soft cover placed over the sharp thing. Diane did not mean harm. That was part of the problem. She was already sanding down Daniel's choices into something gentler. "He didn't tell us," Sophie said. "I know." "Why?" Diane smoothed Sophie's hair again. "Sometimes adults make poor choices when they're scared." Mara almost laughed. Poor choices. A phrase large enough to include missed appointments, hidden cancer, and maybe, if stretched until useless, adultery. Daniel's door opened before Mara could speak. He stood in the doorway in the sweatpants Mara had packed, one hand on the frame, looking as though the act of standing had cost him more than he wanted anyone to know. "Mom," he said. Diane turned. The sound she made was small and raw, gone almost immediately. She crossed the room faster than Mara expected and reached for him. Daniel let his mother hug him. Not fully. One arm stayed low as if he were afraid of losing balance. But he let her. His face turned toward the wall, away from Sophie, away from Mara, while Diane held the back of his head with one hand like he was a child with a fever. "My God," Diane whispered. "I'm okay." "No, you're not." "I'm okay enough." Diane pulled back and looked at him, her hands on both sides of his face. "You should have called me." Daniel's mouth moved, but no answer came. Sophie stood frozen beside the couch. Mara felt the day arranging itself without her permission. Diane turned to her. "Mara, I can stay today." Before Mara could answer, Sophie said, "I'm staying home too." "No," Mara said. Sophie looked at her. "I'm not going to school." "You have school." "My dad has cancer." Daniel flinched. Diane said softly, "Maybe one day would be all right." Mara looked at her. Diane lowered her eyes, but not enough to take it back. There it was, the shape of the new battlefield. Mara would be the one saying no. Mara would be the one enforcing medication and school and rest indoors. Daniel would be sick. Diane would be grateful. Sophie would be scared. Everyone would need Mara to be both soft and practical, both forgiving and firm, both mother and nurse and ex-wife and host in a house that no longer knew what it was. "I need to call work," Mara said. Sophie's face changed. "You're going to work?" "I have patients scheduled." "So strangers can have you, but Dad can't?" "Sophie," Daniel said. "No," Sophie turned on him now, crying openly. "No, you don't get to say my name like everything's normal." The room went still. Mara almost stepped toward her. Diane did first. Sophie pulled away before Diane could touch her again. "I'm staying," Sophie said. Mara looked at Daniel. He looked exhausted and ashamed, and too willing to let her be the one who made the decision. That, more than anything, settled it. "You can stay home today," Mara said. Sophie blinked, surprised by the victory. "But not in his room all day. He rests. You eat breakfast. You answer when I text. Diane stays until I get back. If anything changes, she calls me first, not Lily, not anyone else." Daniel looked at her, at Lily's name. Diane looked between them. Sophie did too. Mara had not meant to say it like that, but there it was, another corner of the truth visible in the room. "Who's Lily?" Diane asked. Nobody answered. For a moment, the only sound was Daniel's rough breathing from the doorway. Then his phone buzzed on the nightstand inside the guest room. The sound was small, ordinary, intimate. Mara saw it through the half-open door. The screen lit up against the dim room. A text notification. "Lily Chen. Did she let you stay?" Mara did not move. Neither did Daniel. Sophie followed Mara's gaze and saw the light on the phone, though maybe not the words. Diane looked at Daniel's face and understood enough to go very still. The house held the message like a match struck in a closed room. Daniel reached for the phone too late. Mara turned away first. She went to the kitchen, set the kettle under the faucet, and let the water run longer than she needed to, because for one moment, that was the only sound in the house that belonged to her. The good woman trap. Mara was counting pills at the kitchen table when Sophie came in and asked why she never asked Daniel if he was scared. The question landed between the orange prescription bottles and the plastic pill organizer, small enough to fit in a child's mouth, large enough to stop Mara's hand over the Wednesday morning compartment. It was 6:42 a.m. The house had been awake for hours. Daniel had been up twice in the night. Once at 1:15 when Mara heard the guest room door open and found him leaning against the hallway wall, one hand pressed flat to the paint as if the house were moving. Once at 4:08 when he had called her name from behind the half-closed door, so quietly she almost convinced herself she had dreamed it. He had needed the anti-nausea medication and then sat on the edge of the bed for 12 minutes, breathing through the kind of discomfort he refused to call pain. Sophie had slept badly. Mara knew because her daughter's room had glowed blue under the door most of the night, phone light bright and secretive. Diane had fallen asleep on the living room couch under a folded throw blanket, one hand still wrapped around a paper cup of cold tea. The house smelled like ginger, hospital paperwork, and the sour steam of oatmeal Mara had forgotten on the stove. Now Sophie stood in the kitchen doorway wearing pajama pants, yesterday's hoodie, and the bruised look of a girl who had cried but wanted no one to mention it. "What?" Mara asked. The word came out flatter than she meant. Sophie folded her arms. "You heard me." Mara looked back down at the pill bottles. Daniel Bennett was in the guest room, asleep or pretending to sleep. Mara's ex-husband, Sophie's father, a 44-year-old former financial advisor who used to organize retirement plans for other people and now had 4 prescriptions on her kitchen table, a discharge packet in her tote bag, and a body that could not be trusted to cross a hallway alone. He had been back in Mara's house for less than 24 hours, but already the house had begun to arrange itself around him. Medication times, water glasses, clean towels, quiet voices, closed doors. Mara had not invited the change. She had only failed to stop it. "I'm making sure he takes these correctly," Mara said. "That's not what I asked." "I know what you asked." "Then why won't you answer?" Mara opened the Monday evening compartment and checked it again, even though she had already counted those pills twice. Anti-nausea, antibiotic, pain medication as needed, not scheduled. Appetite stimulant. She had written everything down on a yellow legal pad beside the organizer because Daniel had not been tracking anything in a way that could be trusted. "I'm not his therapist," Mara said. Sophie's face hardened. "You're so cold." Diane stirred on the couch but did not sit up. Mara kept her eyes on the organizer. "Lower your voice." "Why? He's sleeping." "Exactly. So he can sleep but I can't ask questions?" Mara placed the last pill into the Thursday compartment and closed the lid with more care than necessary. The tiny snap sounded loud in the kitchen. "You can ask questions," she said. "You may not like every answer." "I don't get answers." "That isn't fair." Sophie laughed once, short and wet. "Fair." Mara looked up then. Sophie had Daniel's eyes. People used to say that when she was little, back when it felt harmless. Big brown eyes, too expressive for a child who tried to hide things. Daniel could make his face useful when he wanted to. Sophie had not learned that yet. "I asked if he's scared," Sophie said. "You know how much medicine he needs. You know what time he has to drink water. You know when he has to stand up. But you don't ask him anything that matters?" Mara did not answer, because she had asked Daniel things that mattered. Not in the form Sophie wanted, not softly, not sitting on the edge of the bed holding his hand. But she had asked. How long had he been sick? What had he signed? Who knew? What he had told Sophie? Why he had left paperwork in places people would find only after it was too late? Those questions mattered. They just did not sound like comfort. From the couch, Diane sat up, smoothing her gray hair with one hand. Diane Bennett was 68, Daniel's mother and Mara's former mother-in-law, though she still moved through Mara's house with the strained familiarity of someone who remembered where the mugs used to be. Since arriving at dawn, Diane had washed 3 cups, folded a blanket that did not need folding, and thanked Mara 4 times in a voice so gentle it made Mara feel cornered. Diane's fear for Daniel was real. So was her instinct to make Mara responsible for easing it. "Sophie," Diane said carefully, "your mom has done a lot since last night." Sophie turned on her. "I know." The words were angry, but her eyes filled again. "That's the point. She does everything. She just does it like she hates him." Mara pushed back from the table. "I'm going to shower." Sophie stared at her. "That's it?" "I have to work." "You're still going?" "I have patience." "Dad is your patient now." "No," Mara said. The kitchen changed. Not dramatically. Nothing broke. No one gasped, but Diane's hand stilled on the folded throw. Sophie's mouth pressed tight. From the hallway, behind the guest room door, there was no sound at all. Mara heard her own sentence after it was out. "No. True, necessary, cruel." She picked up the pill organizer. "I'll leave instructions on the counter." Sophie's voice dropped. "You really can make anything sound like a job." Mara stood with the pill organizer in one hand and the legal pad in the other. And for a second, she wanted to say the thing that would change the room. "Your father broke this family before he got sick." The sentence sat in her mouth, fully formed. She did not say it. Instead, she said, "Eat something before school." "I'm not going." "You are." "No, I'm not." Diane stood. "Mara, maybe today." Please don't." Diane closed her mouth. Sophie looked from Diane to Mara and seemed to understand with a teenager's awful precision that the adults were now choosing positions. Daniel's door opened. He stood in the hallway in sweatpants and a white t-shirt that hung too loose at the neck. One hand rested against the wall. His hair was flattened on one side. In the morning light, he looked both better and worse than the night before. Less like an emergency, more like an illness that had unpacked. "Soph," he said. She turned at once. The speed of it hurt Mara more than she had time to prepare for. Daniel gave Sophie a small, tired smile. "Your mom's right. You should go to school." Sophie's face folded. "Don't." "What?" "Don't do that." Daniel blinked. "Don't make her the boss and then act like you're being nice." Mara looked down at the pill organizer in her hand. Daniel's eyes moved to her, then away. Diane said softly, "And honey, everyone's just tired." "I'm not tired," Sophie said. "I'm mad." Then she walked out of the kitchen and down the hall. Not to her bedroom, but to the bathroom, where she shut the door with a hard click. For a moment, nobody moved. Daniel lowered himself onto the nearest dining chair without being asked. That, at least, was new. He had begun to calculate his body before it betrayed him. Mara set the pill organizer on the table in front of him. "Morning dose after food," she said. "I heard. There's oatmeal if you can manage it." "I can manage oatmeal." "You couldn't manage water 12 hours ago." Diane looked pained. Daniel gave Mara a look that almost reached humor but died on the way. "Good morning to you, too." It would have been easier if he had been cruel. If he snapped, if he denied, if he made the whole thing uglier, Mara could hate him cleanly. But this quiet version of him, polite, embarrassed, grateful in small doses, was harder to handle. It looked too much like repentance from a distance. From Sophie's distance. From Diane's. Mara knew better. Maybe. Her phone buzzed on the table. Work. Then another notification. Pharmacy. Then a third. Unknown number. Mara picked it up. The unknown number had left a voicemail. She listened with one hand still on the back of Daniel's chair. "Hi, this message is for Daniel Bennett, or his listed emergency contact. This is Elena Ramirez, Oncology Social Work Coordinator with Valley Regional. I'm calling to follow up regarding support services, medication access, advanced care planning, and caregiver coordination. Please call me back at..." Mara stopped the voicemail. Daniel was looking at the table. Diane was looking at Mara. "Who's Elena?" Sophie asked from the hallway. Mara had not heard the bathroom door open. "A social worker from the hospital," Mara said. Sophie's eyes moved to Daniel. "Why do you need a social worker?" Daniel rubbed his face with one hand. "It's standard." Mara almost asked how he knew that if he had not been hiding how far things had gone. Instead, she picked up her purse. "I'll call her from work." "You're calling about Dad from work?" Sophie asked. "I have a break between patients." "Great." Mara looked at her. "Sophie." "What? That's great. Very efficient." Daniel said, "Don't talk to your mother like that." Sophie's eyes filled again instantly. "Then tell me what's happening." He did not. Mara watched the failure cross his face before he covered it with fatigue. Sophie saw it too. She walked back to her room and closed the door. Not a slam this time. Worse, a careful closing. Mara went to work because people were waiting for her there. That was the sentence she repeated in the car, at the red lights, in the clinic parking lot while she sat with the engine off and the morning sun coming hard through the windshield. People were waiting. Mrs. Klein with the knee replacement who needed help on stairs. A construction worker with a shoulder injury. A retired teacher afraid of falling in her own shower. People with appointment times and insurance approvals and pain that had nothing to do with Daniel Bennett. The clinic smelled like disinfectant, rubber mats, coffee, and the faint sweetness of the lotion one of the older therapists used after washing his hands 40 times a day. It should have steadied her. It did not. 15, Mara helped Mrs. Klein transfer from a treatment table to a walker. "Push through your legs," Mara said. "Don't pull with your arms. Good. There you go." Mrs. Klein beamed, proud and breathless. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy. You're doing it." The words were familiar, worn smooth by use. Mara thought of Daniel gripping her forearm in his apartment, his hand too light. She adjusted Mrs. Klein's walker height and did not let her face change. 40. During a break that was supposed to be for lunch, she sat in the small staff room beside a vending machine and called Elena Ramirez back. Elena answered on the second ring. "Elena Ramirez. Hi, this is Mara Bennett. I'm calling about Daniel Bennett." There was a pause, the sound of keys clicking. "And your relationship to Mr. Bennett?" Mara looked at the microwave across the room. Someone's soup rotated inside, orange broth splattering under a plastic cover. "I'm his ex-wife." Another pause. Not judgment, procedure. "Thank you. Is Mr. Bennett with you?" "No, he's at my house." "Is he able to give verbal permission for us to speak?" "He did last night with the nurse line." "I understand. For this call, I'll need permission again unless we're speaking generally. Mara closed her eyes. Of course. This was how the world worked when a marriage ended. Doors closed in legal language. Spouse became ex-spouse. Emergency contact became a question. Care became a role that had to be named before anyone could speak plainly. I can have him call you, Mara said. That would be ideal. We can also discuss general caregiver resources if that's helpful. I'm not... Mara stopped. The soup in the microwave beeped. A coworker came in, saw Mara on the phone, mouthed sorry, and backed out. Elena's voice softened into professional patience. You're not his caregiver? Mara looked down at her scrub pants, at the small stain near her knee from someone else's spilled coffee, at her own hand gripping the phone. I'm trying to figure that out. That's very common. Mara almost hated her for sounding kind. Elena Ramirez was a middle-aged oncology social worker whose voice had the careful warmth of someone trained to stand near disaster without flinching. Mara had not met her in person yet, but she could picture the clipboard, the badge, the soft shoes, the expression that said she knew families came in forms paperwork did not always capture. Elena's job was to help people navigate illness. To Mara, in that break room, she also became the first official person to ask what Mara was in Daniel's life now, as if any answer could fit on a form. Mr. Bennett's file indicates there may be concerns about home support, medication adherence, transportation, and advanced care planning, Elena said. Advanced care planning? Yes, has he discussed his preferences with you? Mara thought of the hospice brochure hidden under the car magazine, the envelope with her name on it. Daniel on the bathroom floor saying he was fine. No, she said. I see. The words were neutral. They still made Mara feel foolish. Elena continued, if he's staying in your home, we'd want to make sure there's a clear plan. Who is monitoring symptoms? Who can transport him? Who can access medication information? Who should be called in an emergency? These situations can become overwhelming very quickly. I know. I'm sure you do. No, I mean, I work in rehab. I know what care looks like. I understand. Mara heard the difference. Knowing care and being the caregiver were not the same. Elena did not have to say it. We can schedule a family meeting, Elena said, with Mr. Bennett's permission. It could be by phone or video. Family meeting, Mara repeated. The words made something in her go still. Family. Elena, Mara said, I need to be very clear. I'm his ex-wife. He is staying at my house because he was not safe alone last night, and because we have a daughter. I need information that affects my daughter and my home. I am not agreeing to become... She stopped. A person at the staff room door shifted. Mara turned. Sophie stood there. For half a second, Mara could not place her. Her daughter did not belong in the clinic hallway, wearing jeans and a school hoodie, backpack over one shoulder, hair pulled back too tightly. Diane stood behind her, holding car keys and looking apologetic before Mara even asked a question. Mara lowered the phone. What are you doing here? Sophie's eyes were bright and furious. Grandma brought me. Diane stepped forward. She wanted to see you. I thought maybe... You thought bringing her to my work was a good idea? Diane's face tightened. She was very upset. I have patience. I know, but... Mom, Sophie said. Mara looked at her daughter. Sophie had heard enough. Maybe not all of it. Enough. Mara lifted the phone again. Elena, I'll call you back. Of course, Elena said. Take your time. Mara ended the call. There was a short silence in the hallway outside the staff room. A therapy aide passed with a stack of towels, slowed slightly at the sight of them, then kept going. The ordinary life of the clinic continued around Mara's private life, like water around a stone. Sophie's voice was low. You said you're not his caregiver. Mara looked at Diane. Diane looked away. Mara moved them toward an empty consultation room. Not fully private, but better than the hallway. She closed the door behind them. Sophie, why aren't you at school? Because Dad is sick. And I told you. I know what you told me. Diane set her purse on a chair. I'm sorry, she was crying and she wanted to talk to you. So you drove her here? She wouldn't calm down. I'm right here, Sophie said. You can stop talking about me like I'm 5. Mara turned to her. Then stop making choices like you're 5. Sophie's face changed. Diane said, Mara. Mara regretted it instantly. Not enough to take it back fast enough. Sophie's voice shook. I heard you. I know. You said he's at your house, not our house. Mara did not answer. And you said you're not agreeing to become something. This is complicated. No, you make it complicated. Diane stepped in softly. Sophie, honey, your mom is dealing with a lot. She keeps saying that without saying anything. Mara felt the room closing around her. White walls, a rolling stool, a model of a knee joint on the counter. A laminated poster showing proper lifting mechanics. Everything clean and useful and completely wrong for this conversation. What do you want me to say? Mara asked. I want you to act like you care. There it was. Plain. Not fair, not entirely false in the way Sophie meant it, because Sophie did not know what the caring cost, but still there. Mara rested one hand on the back of the chair. I brought him home. You keep saying that like it proves something. It does. It proves you didn't want to feel guilty, Diane inhaled softly. Mara stayed very still. Sophie looked scared the second after she said it, but she did not take it back. Mara saw the child in her then. The child who had watched Mara organize, manage, schedule, instruct, contain. The child who wanted her mother to cry over Daniel so she could be sure love had existed. The child who thought warmth was the same thing as truth. Is that what you think? Mara asked. Sophie's chin lifted. I think you like being in charge. Diane said, Sophie, I think Dad got sick and now she gets to decide everything. Who sees him, who talks to him, what we're allowed to know. That is not what's happening, Mara said. Then what is? Mara looked at her daughter. Your father lied to me. Your father lied to you. Your father had another woman in his life before the divorce, and that woman had to come to our door with his medication because he still would not tell us the truth. Your father is sick, yes, but sickness did not build this whole mess by itself. None of it could be said here. Not in a consultation room at her clinic, with Diane standing beside a model skeleton and Sophie's face already too full. So Mara chose the sentence she could defend. I'm trying to keep you safe. Sophie laughed through tears. From what? Knowing things? Mara had no answer that did not break something bigger. Her phone buzzed. Daniel. The name appeared on the screen and all three of them saw it. Mara answered. Daniel? His voice came rough through the speaker because Mara's thumb had hit the button by mistake. Where's Sophie? Sophie stepped closer. I'm here. A pause. What do you mean you're there? I'm with Mom. Mara? His tone carried accusation before he had the strength to hide it. Mara took him off speaker and put the phone to her ear. Diane brought her to the clinic. Daniel coughed once. Why? Because nobody in this family can stay where they're asked to stay. Sophie heard the edge even without the speaker. Daniel's voice lowered. Don't take this out on her. Mara shut her eyes. Of course. There it was again. Daniel, sick and frightened and still able to make Mara the hard one. I have to go back to work, she said. She's scared. I know she's scared. Then maybe don't what? Silence. Daniel did not finish. He did not have to. Don't be like that. Don't make it harder. Don't let your anger show where Sophie can see it. Mara ended the call. Before she said something the clinic walls would remember. Sophie stared at her. You hung up on him? I have patients waiting. He has cancer. I know. Do you? The words were almost identical to ones Mara had said to Daniel the night before. Hearing them from Sophie made them worse. Mara opened the consultation room door. Diane, please take her home. If she refuses school today, fine, one day, but she is not staying here. Sophie did not move. Mara looked at her. I will be home after my last patient unless Daniel's symptoms change. I will call Elena back. I will handle the paperwork. I will keep his medication straight. I will make sure he eats if he can eat. I will make sure he does not fall if I can prevent it. That is what I can do right now. Sophie's face crumpled. What about being nice to him? Mara's hand tightened on the doorframe. Diane looked at the floor. Mara's voice came out quieter. Nice is not the same as safe. Sophie wiped her cheek hard. You always do that. What? Make everything sound like something from work. Then she walked past Mara into the hallway. Diane followed, pausing only long enough to touch Mara's arm. She doesn't understand, Diane said softly. Mara looked at her. Diane added, You've always been good for him. It was meant as gratitude. It landed like a chain. Mara did not answer. Diane left. Mara stood in the consultation room for several seconds after the door to the clinic waiting area closed. On the counter, the plastic knee joint sat bent at 90 degrees, clean and instructive. A body reduced to parts that moved if someone guided them correctly. By the time Mara got home that evening, the sun was low and hard over the block walls, turning the neighborhood the color of dust. There was a bag from the pharmacy on the counter. Diane had picked up a refill, a casserole dish in the fridge, a yellow sticky note in Diane's handwriting. He kept soup down at 2. Sophie finally ate toast. Call me if night is bad. Mara set her work bag down. The house was too quiet again. Daniel's door was half open. He was asleep, or close enough. The pill organizer sat on the nightstand where Mara had left it. Wednesday evening, still closed. She took it and went to the kitchen. Sophie sat at the table, not on her phone, not eating, just waiting. Mara knew from the set of her shoulders that they were not done. Did you take your dad's evening meds to him? Mara asked. No. Okay. Mara opened the compartment and checked the pills. He needs these with food. Sophie watched her. Do you hear yourself? Mara placed the pills into a small ceramic dish. Yes. You sound like a nurse. I'm not a nurse. That's not the point. Mara filled a glass with water. Sophie's voice dropped. He asked if you were mad at him. Mara stopped. What did you say? I said I didn't know. Mara turned. Sophie, what was I supposed to say? You walk around like he's an appointment you didn't want. He is sick. I'm making sure he is cared for. You're making sure no one can say you didn't. The sentence did not come out loud. It did not need to. Mara set the glass down so carefully it made no sound. Sophie's eyes were red again, or still. You only brought him here so you wouldn't feel guilty. There it was, the irreversible thing. Not because the words were true, not because they were false, because once said, they entered the house and joined everything else that could not be put back where it had been. Mara looked at her daughter across the kitchen table. For a moment she saw Sophie at 7, sitting in that same chair with a gap where her front tooth had been, asking if Daniel would be home for pancakes. She saw Daniel at the stove, flipping one too early because he was impatient. She saw herself laughing before she knew she would one day stand here holding his pill organizer like evidence. I brought him here, Mara said, because he could not be alone. Sophie waited. Mara had nothing softer to add. Sophie stood. That's what I mean. She walked down the hall. Sophie. Her daughter did not stop. The bedroom door closed, this time not carefully. Mara stood outside it a minute later with Daniel's pill organizer in one hand and the small dish of medication in the other. Behind the closed door, Sophie was crying in short, controlled bursts, trying not to be heard. Mara did not knock. Down the hall, Daniel coughed once in the guest room. The evening dose sat warm in her palm. Mara stayed where she was, between the two doors, holding the proof that she could keep track of every pill in the house and still have no idea how to reach her own child. Lily's offering. The food bag was sitting on the porch when Mara opened the door at 6:12 in the morning. At first, she thought Diane had come back early. The bag was insulated, dark blue, with a zipper along the top and a paper tag tied to one handle. It sat centered on the welcome mat, too carefully placed to be accidental. Around it, the concrete was already dry. The morning heat had begun to gather in the stucco and the driveway, and the street beyond the yard was quiet except for a sprinkler clicking somewhere down the block. Mara did not touch it right away. She stood in the doorway in her work scrubs, one hand on the frame, hair still damp from the shower, and looked at the bag as if it might speak first. Behind her, the house had the exhausted hush of people trying not to wake one another. Daniel was asleep in the guest room after a bad stretch around 4. Sophie had not come out yet. Diane had gone home late the night before, after leaving a list of things Daniel had tolerated. Half a bowl of soup, 4 crackers, electrolyte water, 1 dose of nausea medication. The list was still on the kitchen counter. Mara looked at the paper tag. No name. Only 3 words written in careful black ink. For Daniel, please. She knew anyway. Lily Chen. Lily had been quiet for almost a day, which Mara had foolishly allowed herself to mistake for obedience. She had not answered Lily's texts after Daniel came home. She had not invited updates, comfort, apology, or explanation. The rule had been simple enough that even a stranger could understand it. No Lily in the house. But this was how some people crossed a line without stepping over the threshold. Mara crouched, unzipped the bag, and looked inside. A quart container of soup wrapped in a towel. 2 bottles of electrolyte drink. Crackers. A soft gray blanket with the store tag still attached. A small package of ginger chews. Everything practical, everything specific. Everything chosen by someone who had watched Daniel be sick. That was what made Mara angry. Not the food, not even the note. The knowledge. Lily knew he needed ginger chews. Lily knew electrolyte drinks were easier than water. Lily knew he got cold after treatment, even in Phoenix, even under blankets. Mara closed the bag and carried it inside. She put it on the kitchen counter. Then she took the note, folded it once, and dropped it into the trash under the sink. The soup stayed. That was the problem with anger. It did not make broth less useful. In the guest room, Daniel shifted on the bed when Mara came in with the first dose of morning medication. The blinds were half closed, striping the room in pale gold. He looked like he had not slept so much as been set down somewhere by the night and left there. Daniel Bennett was still Mara's ex-husband, still Sophie's father, still the man whose choices had split the house in 2 long before illness brought him back into it. But in the morning light, with the skin under his eyes gray and his hands moving slowly on the blanket, He also looked like a man trapped in a body that kept giving away things he wanted hidden. "Morning," Mara said. He opened his eyes. "What time is it?" 6:20. He frowned as if the number had disappointed him. "Medicine," she said. He pushed himself up. "I can do it, I'm sure." She handed him the small dish anyway. His eyes moved past her to the hallway, then back. "Sophie up?" "Not yet." He swallowed the first pill with difficulty, then waited before taking the next. Mara did not tell him to slow down. He already knew. Some instructions were only useful when a person had not been humiliated by needing them. From the kitchen came a faint rustle. Daniel noticed. "What's that?" "Food." "From Diane?" "No." He looked at her. Mara kept her face still. His eyes lowered. He knew. Of course he knew. "Lily brought it," he said. "She left it at the door." His hand tightened around the water glass. "I didn't ask her to." "I didn't say you did." "She shouldn't have come." "She didn't come in." "Mara, take the last pill." He looked at her for a moment, then took it. The room held the smell of medication, old sleep, and now soup warming faintly in the kitchen because Mara had transferred it to a pot before she could decide not to. She hated that too. The body needed what the heart refused. Daniel's body needed fluids, salt, calories, softness. The source did not matter to the body. It mattered to her. Sophie appeared in the doorway while Mara was adjusting the notepad on Daniel's nightstand. She wore jeans and the same hoodie she had worn for 2 days, though Mara had put clean clothes in the laundry basket outside her door. Her hair was tied back messily. Her eyes moved from Mara to Daniel to the dish of pills, then toward the kitchen. "What smells good?" "Soup," Daniel said. His voice warmed for her. "Not much, but enough." Sophie stepped farther into the room. "Grandma made it?" Mara capped the pen. Someone dropped it off. Sophie looked at her. "Someone?" "Someone from your dad's side." Daniel looked at Mara. Sophie caught it. "Who?" Mara picked up the empty pill dish. "It doesn't matter." "That means it matters." Daniel said, "Soph." "No, I'm asking." Mara turned toward her daughter. "It was left on the porch. I don't know that it's something we need to discuss before breakfast." Sophie's face closed in that teenage way. Not dramatic, just an inner door sliding shut. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Answer like a customer service email." Daniel rubbed a hand over his mouth to hide either a cough or a reaction. Mara could not tell which. "School," Mara said. "You need to get ready." "I'm not going." "We talked about this." "No, you talked." Daniel shifted. "You should go." Sophie's eyes flashed toward him, wounded by his agreement with Mara, even though she had wanted him to be responsible. "I want to stay." "I'll be here when you get back," he said. Mara looked at him sharply. Daniel caught it and added, "I mean today." Sophie heard the correction. Her face changed. Mara hated him for needing to make it. She also hated herself for being relieved that he had. "I'll heat the soup," she said, and left before the room could ask more from her. Her phone buzzed while she was standing at the stove. Lily. Mara stared at the name on the screen. "I just wanted to leave something. I won't come in." A second message followed. "He gets nauseous if the soup is too hot." Mara set the phone down beside the stove, face up, as if ignoring it required surveillance. The soup trembled in the pot. Chicken broth, rice, ginger, carrots cut small. Nothing fancy. Exactly the kind of thing a person made or bought when they had already learned what sickness accepted. Mara typed back with one finger, "Do not come here again." She stared at the message, then added, "Do not contact Sophie." She sent it. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. I wasn't going to. Mara did not answer. The pot began to simmer. She turned the heat down. 05, Sophie left for school without saying goodbye to Mara. She did go to Daniel's room. Mara heard the murmur of their voices down the hall. Daniel's low, Sophie's sharper, then softer. When Sophie came out, she walked past the kitchen with her backpack slung over one shoulder and her phone already in her hand. "Sophie." Her daughter stopped at the front door but did not turn. "You need lunch money?" "No." "Text me when you get there." "I always do." "You didn't yesterday." Sophie looked back then. "I had other things on my mind." Mara almost said something about tone. She stopped herself. "Have a good day," she said. Sophie gave her a look that made the phrase seem ridiculous, then left. The door closed. Mara stood in the kitchen with the ladle in her hand and listened to the silence afterward. Daniel ate half a cup of soup. He said it was fine. Not good. Good. Fine. Mara did not tell him she knew he was lying because he finished it too carefully. At noon, while Daniel slept and Diane texted to ask if she should come by later, Mara found the gray blanket still folded in the food bag. She had meant to throw it out. Not out of cruelty exactly, out of boundary. But Daniel had been cold all morning. The throw blanket from the couch was too heavy. The guest room blanket made him sweat and then chill. Lily's blanket was soft, light, stupidly appropriate. Mara took the tags off. She washed it on quick cycle, even though it was new, dried it, folded it, and placed it at the foot of Daniel's bed without saying where it came from. Daniel noticed. He said nothing. So did Mara. That afternoon after school, Sophie did not come straight home. Mara knew because her phone did not buzz with the usual text from the bus stop. At 3:12, she checked the location app and saw Sophie still near school. At 3:27, the dot moved to the bus route. At 3:46, Sophie came through the front door with her earbuds in and her eyes too bright. "How was school?" Mara asked. Sophie pulled out one earbud. "Fine." The word had become a family heirloom. "Homework?" Later. "Snack?" "No." Sophie started down the hall. "Your dad's sleeping." "I know." "How do you know?" Sophie stopped. It was small, but Mara saw it. A half-second pause. A tightening at the shoulder. I figured. Mara set down the insurance form she had been reading at the kitchen table. "Come here." Sophie turned slowly. "Why?" "Come here." Daniel's door was closed. The house felt too small. Sophie walked back into the kitchen, one hand in the pocket of her hoodie. "Give me your phone," Mara said. Sophie's face changed instantly. "No!" "Sophie? No, you don't get to just, give me the phone." "What did I do?" "That's what I'm asking." "No, you're accusing me." Mara held out her hand. Sophie stared at it with such fury that for a moment Mara saw herself from the outside. A tired woman in kitchen light, hand out, asking for proof from a daughter who already felt watched instead of held. The image did not stop her. Sophie pulled the phone from her pocket and slapped it into Mara's palm.
"Password."
"You know it. Did you change it?" Sophie looked away. Mara's stomach dropped. "Sophie." Her daughter gave the new code, mumbling. Mara unlocked the phone. She did not go through everything. She told herself that mattered. She did not open photos or school chats or search history. She went straight to messages, then Instagram, because Sophie's guilt had already pointed the way. There. A thread with Lily Chen. Mara read the top, then stopped and scrolled back to the beginning. Sophie had found Lily first. Not Lily reaching in, Sophie reaching out. Yesterday, late at night. "Are you Lily?" A gap. Then this morning. "This is Sophie, Daniel Bennett's daughter." A longer gap. "Hi, Sophie. I don't think we should talk here." "Is my dad really that sick?" "You need to ask your mom. She won't tell me anything." Another gap. "He is sick, I'm sorry." "Was the soup from you?" "Yes, I just wanted to help." "Do you love him?" Mara stopped reading. The kitchen tilted slightly, not in a dramatic way. Nothing went black. No roaring in her ears. Just the ordinary cabinets and the school calendar and the dish towel by the sink suddenly existing too clearly. Sophie said, "You're invading my privacy." Mara looked up. "You messaged her." I asked a question. "You messaged Lily." She answered. "She should not even know how to reach you." I reached her. "That does not make it better." Sophie's voice rose. "You won't tell me anything. I have told you what you need to know right now." "No, you tell me what makes you look calm." Mara placed the phone on the table because if she kept holding it, she might grip it too hard. "You do not contact her again," Sophie laughed. "Because she's nice to Dad. Because she is not part of this family." The sentence came out before Mara could soften it. Sophie stared at her. From the hallway, a floorboard creaked. Daniel was awake. Mara did not turn. Sophie's voice dropped. "Maybe she knows more about him than we do." Mara felt the words enter somewhere low and stay there. "That," she said carefully, "that is exactly why you don't contact her." "That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense." "Not to me. You are 14. "I know how old I am." "Then act like it." Sophie's eyes filled. Mara hated herself immediately. Not enough to take it back before Sophie struck back. "You're just mad because he told her things." Mara looked at her daughter. Sophie's face was wet now, but she did not wipe it. "She didn't make him sick," Sophie said. "She's just trying to help. She has no right to you." "To me?" "Yes." Sophie looked genuinely confused. That was the worst part. "I'm not a thing." "No, you are my daughter." "And his." "Yes. And if she knows stuff about him, she does not get to become your way around me." The words came out too close to the truth. Sophie heard the control in them, not the fear. She grabbed her phone from the table. Mara let her. "Sophie." "No." "Give me the phone." "No." "Sophie." Her daughter backed away. "You don't get to block everyone just because you don't like what they know." Then she ran down the hall and shut her bedroom door. Daniel's door opened halfway. He stood there, pale, one hand against the frame, the new gray blanket around his shoulders. Lily's blanket. Of course. Mara looked at it. Daniel followed her gaze and understood. "She contacted Sophie?" he asked. Mara laughed once. "No humor." "You don't get to sound surprised." "I didn't tell her to." "You don't tell anyone anything." Somehow we're all still standing in it. He looked down. That was not enough. Did you know Lily was bringing things here? No. Did you know Sophie found her? No. Did you know Lily was going to answer? No. Then what exactly do you know, Daniel? His face hardened. I know I didn't ask you to police everyone. No, you just made sure everyone needed policing. The bedroom door stayed closed. Daniel looked toward it, then back at Mara. She's scared. I know she's scared. She's looking for something. She's looking for answers from the woman you had an affair with. He flinched. Good, Mara thought. Then hated that she thought it. Daniel lowered his voice. Don't say it like that with her in the house. How should I say it? He did not answer. The gray blanket slipped slightly from one shoulder. He caught it, suddenly self-conscious. And Mara had the childish urge to tell him where it came from, just to watch his face. She did not. Instead, she picked up her phone and called Lily. Lily answered on the fourth ring. Mrs. Bennett? Mara walked out the front door before speaking. She did not want Sophie hearing this. She did not want Daniel hearing either, though part of her did. The late afternoon heat hit her hard. The air smelled like sun on wet pavement, even though the rain had been gone since morning. Across the street, a neighbor's garage door hummed open. Do not contact my daughter, Mara said. A pause. I didn't contact her. You answered her. She asked if Daniel was really sick. That is not your question to answer. I told her to ask you, and then you answered. Lily was quiet. Mara walked down the porch steps to the driveway, phone tight to her ear. You left food at my house? He needs to eat. Daniel needing soup does not make you family. I know that. Do you? A car passed slowly. Mara turned away from the street. Lily's voice changed. Less apologetic now, more tired. I'm not trying to come in. You already did. I left a bag on him. Porch. You gave my daughter a secret. She came to me. She's a child. I know. No, you don't. Lily breathed out unsteadily. I know she's a child. I know I shouldn't have answered. She asked if he was sick, and I couldn't pretend I didn't know. You could have. You're right. The quick agreement irritated Mara more than denial would have. I'm serious, Mara said. You stay away from Sophie. No messages, no likes, no following her, no checking if she posts, no asking Daniel about her. I haven't. Good. Keep not doing it. Keep not doing it. Lily was quiet long enough that Mara thought she had hung up. Then she said, Can I ask if he ate the soup? Mara closed her eyes. There it was. The tiny human question. The kind that made clean hatred impossible. That is not how this works. I just want to know if he ate. He ate half. The answer came out before Mara could stop it. On the other end, Lily made a sound so small Mara almost missed it. Relief. Mara hated being the one who had given it to her. Thank you, Lily said. Don't thank me. Okay. You don't get to use my daughter to stay close to him. I'm not trying to use her, but you are trying to stay close. Lily did not answer. Mara looked toward the house. Through the front window, she could see part of the hallway, the closed bedroom doors, the dim shape of Daniel standing where he should not be standing. Lily said, He won't let me. Mara said nothing. He won't let me come over. He won't answer half my texts. He acts like if he can make me disappear, then what we did disappears too. Mara's jaw tightened. What you did does not disappear. I know. No, you don't get points for knowing. I'm not asking for points. Then what are you asking for? Lily's voice broke, but not prettily. It cracked in the middle and came back rough. I don't know. For a moment, Lily sounded 24. Not the woman in the photos, not the affair, not the porch. Just 24 and in over her head, still trying to turn damage into proof that she had mattered. Mara did not soften, but she heard it. Lily went on, quieter. I know I hurt you. I know I don't have a right to be there, but he was with me too, not like... She stopped. Not like you, I know that, but he was. And now everyone gets to act like I was just some awful thing that happened. And maybe I was, but I'm still here. I still know what his hands look like when the nausea hits. I still know he hates cherry electrolyte drinks. I still know he gets cold after treatment. Mara looked at the driveway, at the pale oil stain near where Daniel used to park. You are not the victim here, she said. I know. Stop saying you know. A silence. Then Lily said, I don't want him to die by like I was never there. The sentence was not noble. That was why Mara believed it. Lily did not say she wanted forgiveness. She did not say she wanted to make things right. She wanted proof of her place in a story where her place had caused harm. She wanted the man who had chosen her in secret not to erase her in sickness. Mara could understand that. She hated that she could. You don't go through Sophie, Mara said. I won't. You don't come to my house. I won't. If Daniel wants to talk to you, that is between you and Daniel. Not my porch, not my daughter, not my kitchen. Lily's breath shook. Okay. And Lily? Yes? If I find out you message her again, I will block you myself, and I will make sure Daniel knows why." "I understand." Mara ended the call. She stood in the driveway for another minute, phone in her hand, heat pressing against her face. When she went back inside, Daniel had returned to bed. His door was half open. Sophie's door was shut. Mara walked to the kitchen table and picked up Sophie's phone, which her daughter must have thrown there after the argument. The screen was still unlocked. She should not have looked again. She did. The last message in the thread was from Lily, sent before Mara's call. "Your dad loves you more than anything. I'm sorry you're scared." Mara read it once. Then again, it hurt because it was too close to true. Daniel did love Sophie. That had never been the simple part. He loved her and still missed her dinner. Loved her and still hid his illness. Loved her and still left their family in pieces that Mara had to keep sweeping into livable piles. And Lily had no right to say it. That was the part that made Mara sit down. Not because the chair was nearby, because her knees had decided without consulting her. From down the hall, Sophie cried once, then muffled it. Daniel coughed behind the guest room door. Mara held the phone in both hands and looked at the message until the screen dimmed. When it went black, her own face appeared faintly in the glass, tired and unfamiliar, caught between the room where her daughter cried and the room where Daniel tried not to need anyone. The paper he signed. At the hospital check-in desk, the woman in navy scrubs asked Daniel if his advance directive was still current. Mara was standing beside him with his insurance card in one hand and the parking validation ticket in the other. For a second, she thought she had misheard. Daniel did not. His hand tightened around the arm of the waiting room chair. The oncology clinic was on the 3rd floor of Valley Regional, where everything had been designed to look less frightened than the people inside it. Soft green walls, framed desert photographs, a coffee machine that hissed in the corner, a small fountain near the elevators that made a calm trickling sound nobody seemed to hear. Patients sat spaced out under the morning light, some with blankets over their knees, some with relatives holding tote bags full of folders, water bottles, chargers, sweaters, snacks, paperwork. Mara had brought a folder too. Daniel's discharge packet, medication list, insurance card, appointment card, a notepad with questions she had written at 5:30 that morning while Sophie slept badly down the hall. Daniel had brought nothing except his wallet and a face arranged to look less sick than he was. The woman behind the desk looked from the computer to Daniel. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "it looks like we have an advance directive and a DNR form uploaded from your last visit. Do you need to make any changes today?" Mara turned to him. Daniel did not look at her. "No," he said. The woman nodded and typed something. Mara kept her voice low. "What form?" Daniel shifted in the chair and "Not here." The woman glanced up, professional enough to pretend not to hear. Mara looked at the waiting room. A man across from them had a knit cap pulled low over his ears. An older woman was rubbing lotion into her husband's hands. A TV mounted in the corner played a cooking show with the sound off. Here then. Here was apparently where people found out the person sleeping in their guest room had made decisions about dying and filed them neatly with the hospital. Mara handed the insurance card back through the slot in the glass. The woman smiled in that careful way people smiled when they sensed a family was standing too close to a cliff. "You're all checked in. The nurse will call you shortly." "Thank you," Mara said. Daniel pushed himself up before Mara could offer help. Too fast. His face changed just slightly, and he caught the edge of the counter with 2 fingers. Mara saw. He knew she saw. Neither of them said anything. They sat in the waiting area with one empty chair between them, as if that chair had been assigned by a court order. Mara opened the folder in her lap and looked at the first page without reading it. Daniel stared toward the fish tank near the hallway. There were no fish in it. Only artificial plants and a small castle with bubbles coming through the roof. "When were you going to tell me?" Mara asked. He kept his eyes forward. "It's not what you think." "You don't know what I think." "I know your tone." Mara turned one page in the folder. It was the pharmacy printout. She stared at the side effects list until the words blurred into useless black rows. "DNR," she said quietly. Daniel exhaled through his nose. "Do you know what it means?" She looked at him then. The insult was small. Maybe unintentional. Maybe only defensive. Still, it entered her like something cold. "I work in rehab, Daniel. I know what it means." His mouth tightened. "Then don't say it like it's a confession. What should I say it like?" "Like paperwork." Mara laughed once under her breath. Daniel looked at her. She closed the folder. "You signed paperwork that affects whether people try to restart your heart," she said. "You did that while living alone, while not telling Sophie how sick you were, while leaving your meds in another woman's car, and now I'm supposed to call it paperwork?" A couple near the window looked over. Daniel lowered his voice. "Can you not do this here?" "No," Mara said. "I actually think here is perfect." He looked away. A nurse opened the door to the hallway. Daniel Bennett? Daniel stood again, slower this time. Mara stood too. For a second, he looked as if he might tell her to stay in the waiting room. His eyes moved toward the hallway, then to the folder in her hand, then back to her face. Whatever argument he had considered, he did not have the strength for it. Fine, he said. I didn't ask. I know. The nurse led them down a hall that smelled like hand sanitizer and warmed plastic. In the exam room, Daniel stepped onto the scale without being told, then looked away from the number. Mara saw it. She did not write it down, though some habit in her wanted to. He had lost more weight. His blood pressure was low enough that the nurse took it twice. Have you had dizziness? She asked. Daniel said, some. Mara said, he was on the bathroom floor 2 nights ago. The nurse looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at the wall. Any vomiting? Not today. Yesterday, Mara asked. He did not answer, the nurse typed. After she left, Daniel sat on the exam table in a disposable calm he did not own. Paper crinkled under him each time he shifted. Mara took the chair near the computer. The folder rested on her lap. I didn't sign it to hurt anyone, Daniel said. Mara looked up. He was staring at his hands. Daniel Bennett, 44 years old, had once managed entire rooms with silence. In meetings, at family dinners, and arguments, he could sit still long enough for other people to fill the space. Mara had mistaken that stillness for steadiness for years. Later, she understood it could also be a way of making everyone else move first. Now illness had taken the polish off him, but not the habit. Even sitting on an exam table in a hospital gown open at the back, he still tried to make silence serve him. Who was it for? She asked. What? The form. Who was it for? He frowned. Me. Only you? It's my body. Yes. He seemed surprised by that. Mara let him be surprised. Then she said, and Sophie is your daughter. His eyes closed briefly. That's why I did it. No, that's why you're telling yourself you did it. He looked at her. You don't get to decide that. I'm not deciding what care you accept. I'm saying you don't get to hide something that could change how your daughter understands the next few months. Months, he repeated. The word hung there. Mara had not meant to choose it. She had not meant to give shape to time. Daniel leaned back slightly against the raised exam table. His face had gone still. What did they tell you? She asked. He was quiet. The answer lived in that quiet before he spoke. Not enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. That's a Daniel answer. His mouth twitched, not quite humor. What does that mean? It sounds like an answer and gives nothing. He looked toward the door. Mara waited. Through the wall came the faint murmur of another nurse, the roll of a cart, a laugh too loud for the place and quickly swallowed. The clinic was full of people trying to sound normal around impossible information. Daniel rubbed his thumb over the hospital ID band on his wrist. The last scan wasn't good. Mara's grip tightened on the folder. He continued, eyes still down. They're adjusting treatment. There are options, not the kind people want. Who knows that? My doctor. Daniel. He swallowed. Lily knows some. Mara's face hardened before she could stop it. She doesn't know about the DNR, he said quickly. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, I'm telling you. Now. He had no defense for that. The doctor knocked and came in before Mara could say more. Dr. Patel was calm, middle-aged, and direct in the way doctors sometimes learned after years of watching families punish vagueness and truth equally. He greeted Daniel first, then Mara, and asked if Daniel wanted Mara present for the discussion. Daniel hesitated for half a second. Mara saw it. So did Dr. Patel. Yes, Daniel said. The appointment unfolded in words Mara knew and did not want to know here. Progression, response, side effects, hydration, possible treatment adjustment, palliative support alongside active treatment, goals of care, symptom management, emergency signs, follow-up labs. Mara took notes because if she did not, her hands would have nowhere to put themselves. Daniel asked 2 questions, both practical. Could he drive? Could he work remotely if he felt up to it? Dr. Patel answered carefully. Mara asked about nutrition, medication timing, what symptoms meant urgent care, whether dizziness after vomiting required ER. Dr. Patel answered her directly. At the end, he said, it may also be useful to have a conversation with your family about what Daniel wants and what support looks like at home. Daniel's face closed. Mara saw it and wanted absurdly to laugh. Family, home, support, all the words people used when they did not know which parts had already broken. Dr. Patel left them with printed instructions and an appointment for Elena Ramirez, the social worker, to call later that afternoon. In the parking garage, Daniel refused the wheelchair. Mara did not argue in front of the volunteer who offered it. She simply walked beside him, close enough to catch him if he listed left, far enough away that he could pretend she was not doing it. The desert heat met them between the hospital doors and the garage like an open oven. The concrete held the smell of oil and dust. Daniel paused near Mara's car, one hand on the roof. "Keys," she said. "I can drive." "No, Mara. You asked Dr. Patel. He said not today. He said not if dizzy. You were dizzy standing up from a chair." He held out for 3 seconds longer than necessary, then handed her the keys. Another small defeat. He hated each one. She drove. For several miles, neither of them spoke. Daniel watched Phoenix slide by through the passenger window. Medical offices, stucco walls, palm trees browned at the edges, a billboard for a personal injury lawyer, a smoothie shop, a preschool playground empty under the noon sun. His face, in profile, looked older than 44. Not old exactly, reduced. Mara should have felt pity. She did. That angered her too. At a red light, he said, "I didn't want her looking at me like that." Mara kept her eyes on the road. "Sophie?" "Yeah." "How?" Like she has to remember every detail because she might lose them. Mara's hands stayed on the wheel. Daniel looked down at his lap. "She's a kid." "She's 14. That's a kid." "Yes. She shouldn't have to sit around watching me fall apart." "So you thought she should just wonder why you disappeared?" "I wasn't going to disappear." Mara looked at him. He looked away first. The light turned green. "You already did," she said. He did not answer. At home, Sophie was waiting in the living room. She must have been listening for the car, because she opened the front door before Mara had turned off the engine. She came out barefoot onto the porch, then stopped, remembering perhaps that running to Daniel might hurt him, or that Mara would say something, or that the new rules had made ordinary love feel supervised. Diane was not there. She had taken the morning shift and left before the appointment, after making Daniel toast he did not finish and telling Mara 3 times to call if she needed anything. Sophie watched Daniel get out of the passenger seat. "Did it go okay?" she asked. Daniel smiled, too quickly. "Yeah, it was fine." Mara shut her car door. Sophie turned to her. "Was it fine?" There it was, the new court. Daniel gave comfort. Mara was expected to give fact. "No," Mara said. "It wasn't fine. It was an appointment." Daniel's eyes flashed toward her. Sophie's face tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means we need to talk inside." "I knew it." Daniel said, "Sophie." "No, don't do that voice." "What voice?" "The one where you act like I'm about to freak out." Daniel had no answer. They went inside. The kitchen table became, without anyone choosing it, the place where things were now handled. Medication, insurance papers, Diane's notes, pharmacy bags, toast crumbs, unopened mail. Mara cleared a space and set the hospital folder down. Daniel lowered himself into the chair nearest the hallway. Sophie sat across from him. Mara remained standing. That was a mistake, probably. But sitting felt like joining something she had not agreed to. Daniel looked at her once, then at Sophie. "I'm sicker than I told you," he said. Sophie's face changed. Not surprise, confirmation. As if some part of her had already known and was angry to be proven right. "How sick?" Daniel rubbed both hands over his knees. "The treatment isn't working as well as they hoped." Mara watched him choose words like stepping stones. "Are you dying?" Sophie asked. Daniel closed his eyes. Mara looked at the table. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a delivery truck beeped faintly as it backed somewhere down the street. "Soph," Daniel said, opening his eyes. "Everybody dies." Mara's head lifted. Sophie stared at him. "That's not funny." "I wasn't trying to be funny." "That's what people say when they don't want to answer." Daniel looked helplessly at Mara. "No," she thought. "Do not give this to me." But Sophie looked too. Mara sat down. Not beside Daniel, not beside Sophie, at the end of the table, where she could see both of them and belong fully to neither. "Your dad has cancer," she said. "The doctors are changing the treatment plan because the last scan wasn't what they wanted. That doesn't mean nobody can help him. It does mean things are serious." Sophie's eyes filled. Daniel reached for her hand. She let him take it. Mara looked away. Daniel said, "I didn't want to scare you." Sophie made a sound like a laugh, but sadder. "That's stupid." "I know." "No, you don't. I was already scared." His face folded in a way Mara had not seen before. Not dramatically, just a small inward collapse. "I'm sorry," he said. Sophie began to cry then. Daniel stood too fast, winced, and sat back down. Sophie got up instead and went around the table to him. She hugged him carefully this time, as if she had learned overnight where his body might hurt. Daniel held her with one arm and closed his eyes into her shoulder. Mara sat at the end of the table with the folder in front of her. The scene should have felt like progress. Maybe it was. Daniel had told her something true. Sophie had heard it. No one had lied cleanly and called it protection. But Mara saw the part still missing, the signed form. The choice he had made before this conversation, the documents uploaded under his name, the way he had allowed Sophie to cry over a truth still edited for her comfort and his shame. Sophie pulled back. Her face was wet. She looked at Daniel first, then at Mara. What happens now? Daniel said, we take it one day at a time. Mara hated the phrase. Not because it was wrong, because it could hold too much avoidance. Sophie nodded as if it were enough, because she needed it to be enough. Then her gaze landed on the folder. What's that? Mara put one hand on it. Daniel looked at her. No, he said quietly. Sophie saw the look between them. What is it? Daniel's voice sharpened. Mara! Mara looked at him. His eyes were pleading now, not with love, with fear. Not this, not her. Mara understood. She also understood that she had spent months letting fear decide the shape of Sophie's knowledge. Daniel's fear. Her own fear. Everyone calling it timing. It's medical paperwork, Mara said. Sophie looked at Daniel. What kind? Daniel's face had gone pale again. Mara did not open the folder. Not yet. Some of it is about what your dad wants doctors to do if things get very serious, she said. Sophie stared at her, not understanding at first, then understanding enough. Daniel pushed back from the table. That's enough for today. Dad? I said that's enough. Sophie flinched. So did Mara, though not visibly. There he was. Not sick Daniel. Not tender Daniel. Daniel who could still close a door in the middle of a room. Mara's voice was quiet. You don't get to snap at her because she heard the edge of something you hid. Daniel looked at her. She doesn't need this right now. When? When I say, the room stopped. Sophie looked from him to Mara. Mara felt the old pattern click into place so cleanly it almost made her dizzy. Daniel deciding when. Daniel deciding how much. Daniel deciding what other people could survive. Mara stood. No. Daniel stared at her. Sophie whispered, Mom. Mara did not raise her voice. Your dad signed a form at the hospital about what care he does or doesn't want if his body gets much worse. That is his legal right. Nobody is taking that from him. Daniel's hands curled around the arms of the chair. But he should have told us, Mara said. Daniel closed his eyes. Sophie's tears had stopped. Her face was pale now. Like, if his heart stops? Mara swallowed once. Yes. Sophie looked at Daniel. He could not meet her eyes. Dad? I didn't want you thinking about that. I'm thinking about it now. I know. No, you don't. Her voice broke. You keep saying that. Daniel reached for her. This time she stepped back. The movement was small. It still changed the room. Daniel's hand stayed out for a second, then lowered. Mara saw the injury pass through him. She also saw Sophie's guilt arrive immediately after. False progress, Mara thought, though not in those exact words. The truth had come out, but not cleanly. There was no clean left. Sophie turned to Mara. Did you know? No. When did you find out? At the hospital today. And you were going to tell me? Mara hesitated. That was enough. Sophie's face hardened. You weren't. I was trying to figure out how. You always are. Sophie, you both do it. Her voice rose. You both decide what I can handle, and then I'm supposed to just be fine when it leaks out anyway. Daniel said, that's not fair. Sophie whipped toward him. You signed a paper about dying and didn't tell me. Daniel went silent. Mara could feel the room tipping towards something she could not control. She should have stopped there. Let Sophie be angry at Daniel. Let the truth settle where it belonged. But Sophie turned back to her with the question Mara had feared before it had words. If he's that sick, Sophie said, why are you still so mad at him? Mara did not answer. Daniel shifted. No, I'm asking her. Mara looked at her daughter. Sophie's eyes were wet again, but there was accusation in them now, not only fear. The talk had made Daniel human to her. Sick, scared, ashamed, maybe wrong, but human. Mara, still sitting straight, still holding facts, still not reaching across the table, had become the hard surface in the room. People don't stop being hurt because someone gets sick, Mara said. Sophie shook her head, and that's not what I asked. It's the answer I have. Then it's a bad answer. Sophie, if he's dying, Sophie said, the word coming out sharp and terrified, why are you still punishing him? Mara felt Daniel look at her. The kitchen was suddenly too bright. The folder on the table, the pill organizer by the sink, the gray blanket folded over the back of Daniel's chair. Sophie standing there in the middle of all of it, asking the question a child would ask because no one had given her the uglier map. Because forgiving him would make everyone comfortable except me. The sentence rose in Mara, clear and brutal. She did not say it. To say it would be to show Sophie the other room behind this one. The room with Lily in it. The room with the phone, the lies, the lawyer's office. The nights Mara had sat on the bathroom floor after Sophie went to sleep because she did not want her daughter to hear her break. Daniel had built that room. Mara had kept Sophie out of it. Now Sophie stood at the door and blamed Mara for the lock. Mara looked at Daniel. He looked away. That was the final small betrayal of the day. Mara stood, picked up the hospital folder, and closed it. "Sophie," she said, "your dad needs rest." Sophie stared at her. "That's it?" "For now." Sophie gave a wet, angry laugh. "Of course." She turned and walked out of the kitchen. This time, she did not go to her room. She went to the guest room. Daniel looked after her. Mara looked at him. "Say something." "What?" "To her, not to me." He pushed himself up slowly. For a moment, she thought he might finally do it. Call Sophie back. Tell her enough. Not everything, maybe, but enough to stop making Mara stand alone in the consequence. Instead, he said, "I need a minute." Mara stood with the folder against her chest. Down the hall, Sophie's bedroom door closed. A few seconds later, her music came on. Too loud. Daniel sank back into the chair. Mara walked past him to the counter and put the folder beside the pill organizer. The Wednesday evening compartment was still closed. She opened it, took out the pills, and set them in the small ceramic dish. Daniel watched her. Neither of them spoke. From Sophie's room, the bass of a song thudded through the wall, muffling whatever she was doing behind the door. Mara placed the dish beside Daniel's water glass. Then she stood at the counter with both hands flat on the cool stone, looking at the paper he had signed and the medication he still needed, and understood with a dull, exhausted clarity that the truth had not brought Sophie closer to her. It had only taught her daughter another reason to hold Daniel tighter. The dinner. Sophie asked for one normal dinner. She asked while Mara was rinsing medication cups at the kitchen sink, with Daniel asleep in the guest room and the hospital folder still sitting on the counter where no one had touched it since the argument. "One dinner," Sophie said. Mara turned off the faucet. Her daughter stood by the refrigerator with her arms crossed, chin lifted in that new way that made her look both 14 and far older than Mara could stand. There were still shadows under Sophie's eyes from crying the night before, but she had brushed her hair, changed into a clean shirt, and put on the small silver necklace Daniel had given her for her 13th birthday. That detail told Mara the request had not come suddenly. Sophie Bennett was Mara and Daniel's only child, and since Daniel had come back into the house, she had begun trying to build a bridge out of anything she could find. Old jokes, soup, questions, a hand on Daniel's shoulder, a text to the woman she should not have contacted. Now she wanted dinner. Not because she believed dinner could fix cancer or divorce, but because she was 14, scared, and desperate for one room where the adults did not look like they were bracing for impact. "What kind of dinner?" Mara asked. Sophie looked suspicious, as if even a question might become a refusal. "Just dinner. We've had dinner." No, you've brought food to his room. Grandma has brought food." "I've eaten cereal twice. That's not dinner." Mara dried her hands on a towel. "Sophie, one normal dinner," Sophie said quickly. "At the table, with Dad sitting there. You don't have to make it weird." Mara almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because Sophie believed weirdness was something Mara added, like salt. From the hallway, Daniel coughed once. Then again, a quieter second cough he probably tried to swallow. Sophie looked toward his room. "He used to like your chicken pasta thing," she said. "Your dad can barely keep soup down. He ate toast today, half a slice." "That counts." Mara folded the towel over the oven handle. Behind Sophie, the refrigerator was cluttered with the life Mara had tried to keep moving. A school calendar, a dentist appointment reminder, a grocery list. One old photo of Sophie at a science fair, because Sophie had refused to let Mara take down every picture that included Daniel's hands. His face was not in that photo, only his hands, holding the cardboard display steady while Sophie smiled. "One dinner," Sophie said again, softer now, "please." Mara looked at her daughter. The safe answer was no. No, because Daniel needed rest. No, because Sophie wanted more from the meal than any table could hold. No, because Diane would turn it into gratitude. No, because Mara could already feel the old shape of the house trying to reassemble itself around her without permission. But another answer waited beneath it. No, and later Sophie would remember that Mara had not even let her have one dinner with her father when there was still time. Mara picked up the pill organizer from the counter. "Small portion," she said. "No pretending he can eat more than he can. If he needs to go lie down, he lies down. No arguing." Sophie's face opened with relief so fast it hurt to watch. "Okay. And this is not a party." "I know. No friends, no extra people." Sophie looked down. Mara saw it. "What?" "Nothing." "Sophie, I thought Grandma could come." Mara closed her eyes for half a second. Diane. Of course. Diane Bennett, Daniel's 68-year-old mother, had been orbiting the house since Daniel returned. bringing casseroles, sending careful texts, calling Mara honey by accident, and then correcting herself. Diane was not cruel. She was worse for Mara right now. She was grateful. She was frightened. She looked at Daniel first when she entered a room and Mara second, always with a soft, apologetic pressure that said, "Thank you for doing what family does." Mara opened her eyes. "Fine," she said. Sophie almost smiled. "But I mean it, no one else." Sophie nodded too quickly. Mara saw that too. But the guest room door opened before she could ask. Daniel stood in the doorway with one hand on the frame. He had shaved, not well. A small patch near his jaw had been missed, and the effort had left him looking more tired, not less. Still, he had changed out of the stretched t-shirt into a button-down shirt that hung loose at the shoulders. Daniel Bennett was 44, Mara's ex-husband, Sophie's father, and a man who had spent most of his adult life making himself look prepared. Even sick, even weak, he tried to dress for the role he wanted others to see. Reasonable, intact, not as close to the edge as his medical paperwork suggested. Tonight, standing in Mara's hallway in a shirt he could barely fill, he looked like someone trying to attend his own life as a guest. "What's happening?" he asked. Sophie turned to him. "Dinner." He looked at Mara. Mara said, "Apparently." Daniel's mouth moved toward a smile for Sophie's sake. "Sounds dangerous." Sophie smiled back, small and eager. "Mom's making the chicken pasta." "Your mom's chicken pasta could bring peace to the Middle East." Mara stared at him. The joke was old. He had said it at dinner parties when they were married, back when people still laughed at harmless exaggerations, and Mara still rolled her eyes because Daniel liked an audience too much. Sophie laughed. That was the problem. The laugh came out real. Daniel heard it and softened. Mara saw his face change, saw the reward move through him. He had made Sophie laugh. For one second, he was not the man who had missed appointments in hidden forms and slept under another woman's blanket. He was Dad. Mara turned toward the pantry. "I'll see what we have." Dinner took 3 hours to become unavoidable. Mara worked in pieces. Chicken thawed in the microwave because she had not planned for this. Pasta water boiled over once. The sauce broke and had to be pulled back together with milk she did not want to waste. She cut Daniel's chicken smaller than everyone else's and hated that the tenderness of the gesture could be mistaken for tenderness toward him. Diane arrived at 5:30 with a casserole dish balanced in both hands. She wore a pale blue cardigan despite the heat and had brushed her hair into the kind of smooth shape that belonged to church services and school concerts. Her eyes went directly past Mara to the hallway, searching for Daniel before she even stepped fully inside. Then she caught herself. "Mara," Diane said, "thank you for letting me come." The casserole dish was warm against her oven mitts, and she held it out like a peace offering. Mara took it. Sophie asked. "I know, she called me." Of course she had. Diane lowered her voice. "She just wants everyone together for a little while." Mara looked down at the casserole. Cheese browned along the edges. Something mild. Something Daniel could maybe eat if cut small and served in an amount that did not look insulting. "That's not what this is," Mara said. Diane's face tightened with pain, but she nodded. "I know." Mara did not believe she did. Daniel came out of the guest room at 6, moving slowly but without asking for help. Sophie hovered beside him, pretending not to hover. Diane clasped both hands at her waist and watched her son cross the living room, as if each step were a small miracle. Mara set the table. 4 plates. Then 5 because Diane was there. Each plate made a sound against the wood. There was a time when Mara had set this table without thinking. Sophie on one side, Daniel at the end nearest the kitchen, Mara across from Sophie so she could get up easily when something needed refilling. Now she stood with a stack of napkins and could not decide where Daniel should sit. Sophie solved it. "Dad can sit where he used to," she said. Mara's hand stopped over the silverware drawer. Daniel looked at her. Diane looked at Daniel. The old chair waited at the end of the table. Mara placed the fork beside it. No one thanked her. Somehow that made it worse. Dinner began with too much effort. Sophie talked first. Too fast. About school, then a teacher who had shown up with 2 different shoes, then a girl in her math class who had dyed her hair purple and gotten dress-coded even though another girl had done the same thing last month, and nobody cared. She kept looking at Daniel after every sentence, checking whether he was listening, whether he was smiling, whether he was still there. Daniel did his part. He asked questions. He smiled when he was supposed to. He took 3 bites of pasta and moved the rest around his plate. His hand shook once when he reached for water. Mara saw it. So did Diane. Sophie did not, or pretended not to. Mara stayed practical. "Water," she said when Daniel reached for iced tea. He paused, then took water. "Slow," she said when he lifted the glass too quickly. His jaw tightened. Sophie looked down at her plate. Diane said, "The pasta's wonderful, Mara. Thank you." "This is what he needed," Diane said softly. "To be home." The table changed. Just a fraction. Sophie looked relieved, as if Diane had named the thing she was hoping for. Daniel stared at his plate. Mara set her fork down. "He's staying here because he wasn't safe alone," she said. Diane's face flushed. "Of course." "That's the reason. I didn't mean—" "I know." The two words were polite and unkind. Daniel said, "Mara." She looked at him. "What?" He had no answer that did not require choosing between them, so he chose silence. Again, Sophie pushed a piece of pasta around her plate. "Can we not?" she said. Mara looked at her daughter. "Just for tonight," Sophie said. "Can we not make everything into a correction?" Mara picked up her fork again. The doorbell rang. No one moved. The sound entered the room like an object thrown through glass. Mara looked first at Sophie. Sophie's face had gone blank too quickly. Daniel closed his eyes. Diane's hand tightened around her napkin. The doorbell rang again. Mara stood. "Sophie?" Her daughter looked down. "Sophie." She just wanted to drop something off. Mara heard the bloodless calm in her own voice. "Who?" Sophie did not answer. Mara walked to the front door. Lily stood outside. Not in the rain this time. There was no weather to soften her. The porch light had not yet come on, but the evening sun caught the side of her face. She wore jeans, a white blouse, and the careful makeup of someone who had tried not to look like she had been crying. In her hands, she held a small cream envelope and a photograph with the back facing out. Lily Chen was 24, Daniel's former affair partner, the woman who had first brought Mara his medication in a pharmacy bag and forced the family emergency into the open. She was no longer just the girl at the door. She had become a competing witness to Daniel's illness, someone who knew his treatment days, his nausea, his fear, and now stood at Mara's house not as a lover invited in, not as family, but as a person refusing to be erased from the goodbye. Mara opened the door only halfway. "No," Lily swallowed. I'm sorry." "No. I know you said not to come. Then why are you here?" Lily looked past Mara, and this time Mara did not step aside because there was no space left to protect. The dining room was visible from the entry. Daniel at the old place. Sophie half standing, Diane rigid in her chair. Daniel looked older than he had 10 minutes ago. Lily's eyes found him. The expression that crossed her face was not performance. That made Mara angrier. "I'm not coming in," Lily said. Sophie said you were all having dinner." Mara turned slightly. Sophie's face crumpled. "I didn't think she'd come to the door." "What did you think she would do?" "I thought she could leave it." Mara looked back at Lily. "Leave what?" Lily held up the envelope. "He left this in my car," she said. "Weeks ago. I found it today under the seat. It has Sophie's name on it." Daniel stood. Too fast. The chair scraped back. "Lily," he said. Mara turned at the sound of the chair and saw him sway. "Sit down," she said. Daniel did not. His eyes were on the envelope. "What is that?" Sophie asked. Lily's hand trembled. Daniel said, "Give it to me." Mara stepped back from the door, not enough to invite Lily in, but enough to keep Daniel in sight. "What is it?" Mara asked. Daniel's face had gone gray. "Oh, it's nothing." Mara almost laughed. "Nothing." The most crowded word in his vocabulary. Sophie came into the hallway now. "Is it for me?" Daniel said, "Not now." "That's my name?" "Sophie." "Is that my name?" Lily looked at Mara, then at Sophie. "Yes." Mara wanted to slap the answer out of the air. Sophie reached for the envelope. Daniel moved toward her. His knee buckled. It happened quickly, and not quickly enough. One hand caught the back of the dining chair, knocking it sideways. Diane cried out. Sophie froze. Daniel tried to correct himself, but his body had no interest in dignity. Mara reached him before he hit the floor. Not fully. She caught enough of his weight to turn the fall into a hard, ugly sink against the wall. His shoulder hit the paint. His breath left him in a sound that made Sophie sob. "Dad!" "Chair," Mara snapped. No one moved. "Chair!" Diane pushed one toward her. Mara guided Daniel down. His face had gone clammy, his mouth tight with pain and embarrassment. She crouched in front of him, 2 fingers to his wrist, then against his neck. "Talk to me," she said. "I'm fine. If you say that again, I will call 911 just to punish the word." Daniel gave a faint, broken breath that might have been a laugh if he had not been so pale. "I'm dizzy," he said. "Good, thank you. Stay there." Sophie was crying now, one hand over her mouth. Diane hovered, helpless. "Should I call someone?" "Not yet. Get his water." Lily stood just inside the open door. Mara looked at her. Lily stopped as if she had hit glass. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered. The room seemed to swell around that word. Mara stood. "Stop saying that in my house." Lily's face tightened. "I didn't mean to make him stand up." No, you just showed up with another thing he hid and handed it to my child at dinner. I didn't hand it to her. You came here. Sophie asked me to leave it. Sophie is 14. I know. Then act like it. Lily's eyes filled, but this time she did not lower her head. I wasn't trying to take anything from you. Mara felt something in her give way. Not snap, not explode. Give way. A support beam inside that had held for too many days under too much polite weight. You already did. The hallway went silent. Lily went very still. Mara heard Sophie inhale sharply. She heard Diane whisper Daniel's name. Daniel remained in the chair, one hand over his eyes. Mara did not look away from Lily. You already did, she said again, quieter. And now you're here asking for a place in what's left. Lily's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Sophie said, Mom, no. The words stopped everyone, because Mara had not raised her voice. She had only removed the cover from it. No, Sophie, not this time. Sophie's face crumpled with confusion and fear. She just wanted to say goodbye. That is not her decision to make in my hallway. Daniel lowered his hand. Mara. She turned on him. And you? His eyes met hers. At last. You keep doing this, she said. Daniel's face changed. Not because he did not understand, because he did. You make choices alone, and then everyone else has to live inside them. You chose to lie before. You chose to hide how sick you were. You chose to sign papers without telling your daughter. You chose to leave letters in cars and envelopes and boxes and medication where other people would find it after you were done deciding. His breathing changed. Sophie stared at him. Diane sat down slowly as if her knees had failed her too. Daniel said, I was trying to make it easier. Mara laughed once. A terrible little sound. For who? Daniel looked at Sophie, then at Lily, then at Mara. No answer came. Mara stepped closer, still keeping space between herself and the chair. You don't get to call it protecting us just because you can't stand watching us react. Daniel closed his eyes. Lily was crying silently now. The envelope had bent slightly in her hand. Sophie's voice came out small. And before what? Mara turned. Sophie stood near the dining room entrance, face pale, eyes wet, necklace shining at her throat. What did you mean he lied before? Daniel opened his eyes. No, he said. Mara looked at him. Not no, because Sophie was too young. No, because the room he had built was opening. Diane whispered, Daniel? Sophie looked from face to face. Mara, Daniel said, and for the first time in days, her name sounded like a plea without strategy. Mara had protected Sophie from this for months. Protected Daniel's image. Protected the old version of their family. Protected maybe the part of herself that did not want her daughter to know she had been humiliated. But the protection had become another lie standing in the room with them. Sophie said, Someone tell me. Lily lowered her gaze. That was enough. Sophie saw it. Her eyes moved to Lily, then back to Daniel. No, Sophie said. It was not a question. Daniel reached for the arm of the chair and missed it. No. The word broke. Mara almost stepped toward her. Stopped. This was the damage she had tried to postpone. It had not disappeared. It had been waiting for a doorway. Sophie turned to Mara. She's why? Mara could not make herself say yes. Daniel said it instead. Not well, not bravely, but he said it. Yes? Sophie stared at him. Lily covered her mouth. Diane closed her eyes. The dining room behind them looked obscene in its normality. Plates of pasta cooling on the table. Diane's casserole untouched. Daniel's water glass half full. Sophie's fork fallen across her napkin. Sophie's face did not collapse all at once. First confusion, then humiliation, then the terrible recalculation of a child realizing adults had been editing her life and calling it care. You knew? She asked Mara. Mara's throat tightened. Yes. And you didn't tell me? No. Because you thought I couldn't handle it? Mara looked at Daniel, then back at her daughter. Because I didn't want you to have to. Sophie laughed through tears. That's not the same thing. No, Mara said. It isn't. Daniel tried to stand again. Mara put one hand out. Don't. You need to sit. I need to talk to my daughter. You needed to do that before she found out at dinner with Lily at the door. That landed. Daniel sank back. Sophie backed away from everyone. I don't want this dinner. Sophie, Diane said. No. She looked at Lily. Why did you come? Lily's face broke. I thought you wanted, I'm 14, Sophie said, voice shaking. Why does everyone keep acting like I'm in charge of things? No one answered. Because the answer was too ugly. Because all of them, in different ways, had used Sophie's fear to justify what they wanted. Mara closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, Lily was still standing inside the doorway. Leave, Mara said. Lily nodded, crying openly now. She held out the envelope. Mara did not take it. Put it on the table by the door. Lily did. Her fingers lingered on it half a second too long. Daniel said, Lily. She turned. He looked at her, but whatever he wanted to say was too crowded by everyone else. "I'm sorry," he said. It was small. Not enough. Lily nodded like she had received something precious anyway. Then she left. The door closed behind her with a soft click that felt louder than the bell had. Daniel bent forward suddenly, one arm across his middle. Mara moved without thinking. "Daniel?" "I'm okay." She looked at him. He corrected himself, barely audible. "I'm not okay." That was enough to make her kneel in front of him again. His skin was damp, his pulse too fast, breathing shallow. Whether from pain, dizziness, shame, or all of it, she could not tell. Diane hovered behind her. "Should I call 911? Mara looked at Daniel. His eyes were on Sophie. Sophie had retreated to the far side of the living room, arms wrapped around herself, staring at her father like she no longer knew which pieces of him belonged to her. "No ambulance," Daniel said. Mara said, "You may not get to vote." He did not argue. That frightened her more than if he had. "Diane, bring the blood pressure cuff from the guest room. Sophie, get his nausea meds." Sophie did not move. Mara softened her voice only slightly. On Sophie, her daughter looked at her. The request gave her something concrete, something that was not deciding truth or forgiveness or blame. She went. Daniel watched her disappear down the hall. His face crumpled then, just once, before he turned away. Mara saw it. So did Diane. Sophie returned with the medication. Her hand shook as she gave it to Mara. "Is he going to die tonight?" she asked. Daniel made a sound. Mara looked at her daughter and chose the least false answer she had. "I don't think so, but he needs to lie down." They got him to the guest room in pieces. Diane on one side, Mara on the other, Sophie behind them with the water glass and the dish of pills. Daniel did not protest. That was how Mara knew he was worse than he wanted anyone to see. In the room, he lay back against the pillows, eyes closed, breathing unevenly. Diane stood at the foot of the bed, one hand pressed to her mouth. Sophie hovered near the door. Mara adjusted the blanket. Lily's gray blanket. Still there. Still useful. Still wrong. Daniel opened his eyes. "Soph," he whispered. Sophie did not come closer. "I'm sorry," he said. She wiped her cheek. "And for what?" The question had teeth. Daniel had no strength to answer it fully. Maybe he never had. "For tonight," he said. Sophie looked at Mara. Mara looked at the floor. Sophie left. Diane followed after a moment, saying she would check on her, though Mara doubted Sophie wanted anyone. Then Mara and Daniel were alone. The house outside the guest room was not quiet. It was full of muffled movements. The ruined dinner, the cooling food, Sophie's closed door, Diane's low voice down the hallway, the envelope on the table by the entrance. Daniel turned his head toward Mara. "I didn't want to hurt anyone else," he said. His voice was barely there. Mara stood beside the bed, too tired to hate him cleanly, too hurt to comfort him. "Then stop deciding for us." He closed his eyes. This time he did not defend himself. Mara stayed a moment longer, watching the rise and fall of his chest, because someone had to. Then she went out to the hallway. The envelope with Sophie's name still sat by the door, bent at one corner from Lily's hand. At the dining table, 5 plates waited under the light. No one had finished dinner. What mercy costs? Daniel was gone before sunrise. Mara found the guest room door open at 5:17 a.m., the gray blanket folded at the foot of the bed and the pillow still dented where his head had been. For one stupid second, she thought he had gone to the bathroom. Then she saw the note. It sat on the nightstand beside the pill organizer, folded once. Sophie's name written across the front in Daniel's neat handwriting. Mara did not touch it at first. The house was gray with early light. In the kitchen, the plates from last night's ruined dinner still sat stacked by the sink, rinsed but not washed. Diane had gone home after midnight, shaken and quiet, promising to come back in the morning. Sophie had shut herself in her room and not come out. Lily's envelope remained on the entry table, unopened, bent at one corner. Mara had slept on the couch for maybe an hour. Not deeply. Not enough. Now Daniel had done what Daniel did. He had left something written and made his body someone else's problem to find. Mara picked up the note. For Sophie. Not for Mara. Of course. She unfolded it anyway. Soph, I'm sorry about dinner. I'm sorry about all of it. I don't want my being here to make everything worse for you and your mom. I love you more than I've ever known how to say. I need you to listen to her. She is doing more than she should have to. Dad. Mara stared at the last line. She is doing more than she should have to. It was almost right. That made it worse. From down the hall, Sophie's bedroom door opened. Mara turned too quickly, note still in her hand. Sophie stood there in pajama pants and Daniel's old ASU sweatshirt, the one she had taken after the divorce and never admitted was his. Her hair was tangled. Her face looked swollen from crying, but her eyes were sharp enough to understand the room before Mara said a word. Where is he? Mara folded the note closed. Sophie's eyes went to it. What is that? Sophie! Where's Dad? Mara looked toward the front door. Daniel's shoes were gone. His phone charger was gone. His duffel was gone, but not all his medications. That detail, more than the note, turned concern into something colder. He left. Sophie's mouth opened. No sound came out. Then, very quietly, because of last night, Mara heard what her daughter was really asking. Because of what you said? Because I found out? Because I asked too much? Because Lily came? Because this family is too broken for him to stay? No, Mara said. Sophie's face crumpled anyway. Mara stepped toward her. Sophie stepped back. The movement stopped both of them. Mara looked down at the note in her hand. He left because leaving is what he does when he can't stand being seen, she said. The sentence came out plain, not gentle, not cruel, just the only truth Mara had the strength to carry. Sophie shook her head. We have to find him. I know. Sophie's eyes widened, surprised that Mara had not argued. Mara picked up her keys from the counter. Put on shoes. I'm coming? Yes. Then Mara stopped. No, that was fear speaking. Sophie did not need to hunt her sick father through Phoenix before breakfast. She did not need a new image of Daniel weak in some parking lot. Or worse. Mara set the keys back down. No, stay here. Sophie's face closed. Mom, I'm not leaving you out. I'm keeping you here because I don't know what I'm going to find. That's worse. I know. Sophie's eyes filled. You can't just go by yourself. I can. That's what he did. The words caught Mara in the ribs. Sophie looked as if she had not meant to say them. Or maybe she had. Mara took a breath and reached for her phone. I'm calling Diane. She'll come stay with you. I don't want Grandma. I know. I want to come. I know. Then why does it not matter? Mara turned back to her daughter. It matters, she said. It just doesn't decide everything. Sophie stared at her. For once, she did not have a fast answer. Mara called Diane. Daniel was not at his apartment. Mara knew before she reached the second-floor landing. The dead succulent was still by the door, the spare key under it, the apartment dark and stale when she let herself in. The air mattress was stripped. The folding chair remained by the sliding glass door. The hospice brochure was gone. So was the envelope with Mara's name that she had brought to her own house and still had not opened. He had come back here, but not to stay. On the kitchen counter was a glass with water at the bottom and 2 pills beside it. Not taken. Mara stood in the apartment with her phone in one hand and Daniel's note to Sophie folded in her pocket. She called him. Straight to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Then she called Lily. Lily answered, as if she had been holding the phone. Mrs. Bennett, have you heard from him? A pause. No. Mara closed her eyes. Lily's voice changed. He left? Do you know where he would go? Maybe, I don't know. Lily. He used to park near the overlook off South Mountain. After treatment sometimes, he said it was quiet. Mara was already moving. He doesn't have the strength to be wandering around. I know. Do you? Lily took that without protest. Then she said, I can go look. No. I'm closer. No, please. Mara stopped at the apartment door. The words sounded different this morning. Not like a performance. Not like a girl on a porch asking to be forgiven by being useful. Just fear. Stripped down. Mara looked back at Daniel's empty apartment. The air mattress, the folding chair, the 2 pills on the counter. If you find him before I do, she said, you call me. You do not take him anywhere. You do not call Sophie. You do not make this yours. I won't. I mean it. I know. Mara almost told her to stop saying that. Instead, she hung up. Phoenix at sunrise looked too beautiful for the morning. The sky had opened pale over the low brown mountains. The city still cool in the brief mercy before heat. Joggers moved along sidewalks. A man watered gravel in front of a strip mall as if water could persuade stone to live. Traffic was light, mostly commuters, landscapers, delivery trucks. Mara drove with Daniel's name on her phone screen, calling again and again, each call dropping into voicemail. You've reached Daniel Bennett. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. By the 4th time, she wanted to throw the phone across the car. At the overlook, she found his car. He had parked crooked under a mesquite tree, far from the other cars. The driver's side door was closed. The windshield reflected the brightening sky. For half a second, Mara sat in her own car and did not move. Then Daniel shifted inside. Alive. Anger came before relief. Good. Anger gave her legs. She got out and walked to his car. The morning air was cool enough that she could smell dust, creosote, old rain drying from the desert. Daniel sat in the driver's seat with both hands folded loosely in his lap. He had reclined the seat partway. His face looked waxy in the early light. The hospice brochure lay on the passenger seat. Beside it, his phone screen down. Mara opened the door. He turned his head slowly. You found me. Don't sound surprised. He looked out toward the city. I wasn't trying to scare anyone. Mara laughed once. It was not a nice sound. Daniel closed his eyes. Okay. That's it, okay? I don't have a good answer. No, you have a lot of answers. They're just all bad. He did not defend himself. That too was new. Mara looked at him properly then. At the gray around his mouth, the shallow rise and fall of his chest. The way he had not even reached to close the car door against the cold. You didn't take your morning meds? I was going to. When, after making sure Sophie found your note? His face tightened. I left it for her because I didn't want her thinking. You left it so you wouldn't have to watch her read it. Daniel looked at her. The words sat between them, too true to move. A car pulled into the lot behind them, then continued toward another trailhead. Its tires crunched over gravel. Somewhere in the brush, a bird made a thin, repetitive call. Daniel rubbed a hand over his face. Last night was too much. Yes, I hurt her. Yes, I hurt you. Mara did not answer. Daniel looked down at his hands. I keep thinking if I can just get out of the way. You are not getting out of the way. You are leaving people with the mess and calling it kindness. He flinched. Good, she thought again. Then was too tired to hate herself for it. Daniel said, I don't know how to do this. That's the first honest thing you've said all week. He gave a faint breath, almost a laugh, but it broke into a cough. Mara reached into the car automatically, one hand to his shoulder, the other searching for the water bottle in the cup holder. Empty. Of course. Where are your meds? In the bag. What bag? He glanced toward the back seat. Mara opened the rear door. His duffel lay there, half-zipped. Medication bottles, a sweatshirt, folded papers, a toothbrush. The life of a man trying to make disappearance look organized. She took the anti-nausea medication and a bottle of water from her own car. Take this. I'm not a patient. Today you're a man in a parking lot who skipped medication after nearly collapsing at dinner. He looked at the pills, then at her. I don't deserve this. Mara held the medication out. Probably not. A faint pained surprise crossed his face. She did not soften it. Take it anyway. He did. For a while they stayed there with the car door open, the city spread below them in the clean morning light. Mara stood outside, Daniel sat inside, and it felt like the correct arrangement. Near enough to speak, not close enough to confuse the shape of anything. Daniel held the water bottle in both hands. Is Sophie okay? No. His mouth tightened. She thinks you left because of the truth coming out. I didn't. I know, she doesn't. He stared through the windshield. I thought if I stayed, I'd make it worse. You did make it worse by leaving. He nodded once, very small. Mara leaned back against the edge of his open door. I need to say this once, she said, and I need you not to interrupt me. Daniel looked at her. She waited. He nodded. You can come back to the house. You cannot come back to being my husband. His eyes lowered. I know. No, you need to know it the way Sophie needs to know it, the way your mother needs to know it, the way Lily needs to know it. I am not doing this because we are back together. I'm not doing this because the affair is forgiven. I am not doing this because sickness erased what happened. He swallowed. Mara's voice stayed even because if it broke, the words might change shape. You can stay because you are Sophie's father, because you are not safe alone, and because I'm not going to let you die like a man hiding from the people who love him. But if you stay, no more secret paperwork that affects her. No leaving notes instead of having conversations. No making me explain your absence. No using dignity as an excuse to disappear. Daniel closed his eyes. She waited. He opened them again. And Lily? He asked quietly. Mara looked toward the city. Lily's car was not in the parking lot. For that, Mara was grateful. Lily can say goodbye once, Mara said. Daniel's face changed. Not through Sophie, not at my dinner table, not through bags on my porch, once, with clear boundaries. After that, you handle your relationship with her like an adult, away from my daughter. Daniel nodded. There was grief in his face, for Lily maybe, for himself, for the shape of the life he had made and then tried to leave behind in pieces. I made you live inside choices you never got to make, he said. Mara looked at him. The sentence did not sound rehearsed. It sounded found, reluctantly, somewhere he had not wanted to look. She felt something in her respond. Not forgiveness. Not even relief. Recognition, maybe. That's one way to put it, she said. I'm sorry. She looked down at the gravel. Sorry had been in the house all week, from Lily, from Diane, from Daniel in fragments. It had not fixed the medication schedule or Sophie's tears or the envelope on the entry table. It had not made Mara less tired. It had not rewound the porch light, the bathroom floor, the dinner. I'm not ready to do anything with that, she said. Daniel nodded. For once, he did not ask her to. The drive home was quiet. Daniel sat in the passenger seat with his head back and his eyes closed. one hand resting loosely over the seatbelt at his chest. Mara drove slower than usual, partly because she did not trust him not to get sick, partly because she did not want to arrive before she knew what face to wear. Diane's car was in the driveway. Sophie was waiting on the porch. She stood when Mara pulled in. Diane hovered behind her, one hand at her own throat. Lily was not there. Good. Daniel opened his eyes. Give her the truth, Mara said before turning off the engine. I will. Not the version that makes you look least frightening. He nodded. Sophie came down the porch steps as Daniel got out. This time Mara did not stop her. Sophie approached slowly as if the space between them had rules now. Daniel stood beside the car, one hand on the door, waiting for her. Why did you leave? Sophie asked. Daniel's face tightened. Mara stood on the other side of the hood and listened. Because I was scared, he said. Sophie's eyes filled. Of what? You, your mom, seeing what I did, seeing me. That's not an answer. Daniel looked at Mara once. She gave him nothing. He looked back at Sophie. It's the answer I have right now. I'm not saying it's good. Sophie wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. You left me a note. I know. That was awful. I know. You can't keep doing that. Daniel's face broke a little. No, he said, I can't. Sophie stepped forward. Not into a full hug, not yet. She touched his wrist lightly as if checking that he was real. Mara looked away. Diane opened the front door. Inside, the house smelled faintly of reheated coffee and the lemon cleaner Mara used when she wanted the counters to feel less like evidence. The dinner plates had been washed. The envelope with Sophie's name still sat on the entry table. No one touched it. Later, after Daniel had rested and eaten half a banana and 2 crackers, Mara helped him to the patio. Phoenix morning had warmed, but not yet burned. The small backyard held its usual unglamorous details. 2 plastic chairs, a metal table with a faded umbrella, potted rosemary that had survived Mara's neglect. A block wall, a strip of sky so clean it looked almost artificial. Beyond the wall, a neighbor's dog barked once and lost interest. Daniel lowered himself into the chair with care. Sophie stood by the sliding glass door, uncertain. Mara looked at her. You can sit with him. Sophie stepped out. Daniel looked up at her. Hey. She took the chair beside him, not too close. Then, after a moment, closer. Mara stayed in the doorway. For several minutes, no one said anything. That was all right. The silence was not fixed. It was not peaceful. It was only honest enough not to pretend. Daniel turned his face toward the sun. Sophie watched his hands. Mara watched Sophie. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter behind her. She went inside. Lily, thank you for letting me say goodbye. I'll wait until you say when. Mara looked at the message. The old answer rose first. No. Then a dozen others. Not now. Never. You don't get to thank me. You don't get to be part of this. You already are. She did not type any of them. She turned the phone face down. On the back of the couch lay the gray blanket Lily had brought days ago. Washed twice now. Folded. Used. Still here. Mara picked it up. For a second, she stood in the living room with it in her arms, looking through the sliding glass door. Daniel sat in the patio chair, thinner than the man who had left this house months ago, smaller than the husband she had known, still not absolved. Sophie sat beside him, shoulders hunched, her profile no longer innocent in the same way. She knew more now. Not everything. Enough to lose the simple father and keep the real one. Mara opened the sliding door. Both of them looked up. She walked out with the blanket. Daniel's eyes followed it. Maybe he knew where it came from. Maybe not. Mara did not hand it to him. She draped it over Sophie's shoulders first. Sophie looked up at her. The gesture was small, almost nothing. But Sophie's face changed. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not fully. Just the first small recognition that Mara was not standing outside the pain because she did not feel it. She was standing where she could still hold something. You okay? Mara asked. Sophie nodded, though she was not. Mara did not correct her. She tucked one edge of the blanket around Sophie's arm, then laid the other side loosely across Daniel's knees. Daniel looked down at it, then at Mara. I'm still here, Mara said. It was not a promise to stay forever. Not a wedding vow remade. Not forgiveness dressed as mercy. Just the amount of truth she had available that morning. Daniel nodded once. Sophie pulled the blanket closer around her shoulders. After a moment, she reached under it and found Daniel's hand. Mara stepped back to the doorway. Inside, her phone stayed face down on the counter. Outside, the morning light moved slowly across the patio, touching Sophie first, then Daniel, then the empty chair Mara did not sit in. The house behind her was no longer the house before betrayal. It was not the house after forgiveness either. It was only the place where they had stopped letting silence decide everything.